of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Thursday to you, my little buddy.
Happy pre-Friday Eve, Crudy. How you doing today? Are you feeling a little better today after yesterday?
I did get a better night's sleep. I was exhausted by the time I laid my head on the soft pillow last night and realized that pillow's too soft. I need a different pillow. So anyways, I made myself comfortable. I can't live with an overly soft pillow. We have too many randoms on the bed, so I got to find the right one.
A clear conscience, Crudy, that also makes you sleep a little better, doesn't it?
Yes, I feel great in that regard, Dom. My conscience is clear. Dom, in fact, this is going to be a big show. I can't wait for it. We got a fine guest joining me here in the Broadcast Bunker 2.0. He is Ben Wickler, candidate for the chair of the great Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin. Until very recently, he was a senior advisor with MoveOn.org. And Ben's coming here to the brand new Talk 92.7 FM studios, Tom.
Nice.
Exciting stuff. Also, when our buddy Joe Zepecki, we got a good friend, and he's being quoted in a national publication, and I'd like to share some of this with our fair audience.
Go, Joe.
The headline, Reed Wilson at thehill.com. GOP base wakes up in Wisconsin. Boo. I'm going to read from this piece. Wisconsin voters on Tuesday delivered a stinging defeat to Democrats hoping to hold a seat at on the state Supreme Court, and a hint that a sleeping Republican base is beginning to wake up just in time for the 2020 presidential. Just weeks ago, Democrats believed their preferred candidate, Judge Lisa Neubauer, was a heavy favorite. Her opponent, Judge Brian Hagedorn, a conservative former aide to ex-Governor Scott Walker, spent nearly the entire race defending himself from attacks over a blog post he wrote that laid out controversial views. Is that what we're calling them?
Yeah, just controversial. Not really. Not
I call
a
him
big deal.
homophobic.
He hates the gays.
Controversial views of gay rights and public religion. Several prominent groups that usually back conservative judicial candidates distanced themselves from Hagedorn. At the same time, the liberal groups pumped in more than $3 million in television ads backing Neubauer. Hagedorn trailed even in internal Republican surveys. One poll conducted by the Republican Senate Leadership Committee a week before Election Day found Neubauer leading 42-34. Well, what's Trump always tell us, Tom? Can't believe the polls. But voters on Tuesday gave Hagedorn a slim lead of about 5,900 votes out of almost 1.2 million cast. Hagedorn has declared victory, though the race is so close that Neubauer has the option to request a recount. The results show a Republican base that is becoming more interested and energized by politics, cutting into an enthusiasm gap that has fueled Democratic wins since President Trump was sworn into office. And for 2 years, Democratic anger at Trump has translated into wins at the poll. The party picked up more than a dozen Republican-held state legislative seats in special elections, a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat last year, and sweeping midterm election wins across the country, including Wisconsin, where Democrat Tony Evers beat Walker. The Democratic energy still exists. Neubauer, the liberal candidate, won 45,000 more votes than did Justice Rebecca Dallett, the liberal who won last year's race. But among the 200,000 voters who cast a ballot this year after sitting out last year, the vast majority appear to have broken for Hagedorn. He took 160,000 more votes than the conservative candidate who lost to Dallett last year. Now, here's a quote, not our buddy Joe Zepecki, but we'll get to him. The idea that the conservative grassroots was able to power a victory like this when Hagedorn was outspent by as much as he was for as long as he was is incredible, said Brian Reisinger, a Republican strategist in Wisconsin and a former Walker advisor. Though liberal groups outspent conservatives more than $1 million in late spending for the Republican State Leadership Committee poured into Wisconsin in the final weeks. I'd point out once again for our liberal friends, Neubauer had more money than Hagedorn. His money just came in late. The RSLC targeted Republican voters who often sit out low turnout spring elections, sending 1.2 million text messages and running digital ads. And 4 mailers landed on Republican doorsteps in Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington counties. You know, the wows, Dom. Well, the writer also mentions that, so I'm feeling redundant. The so-called wow counties that ring Milwaukee, where Republicans need to drive up turnout to succeed statewide. In each of these 3 counties, liberal Neubauer improved on Dallett's performance from a year ago, but Hagedorn improved on the conservatives' performance far more, by almost 30%. His improvement in Waukesha County alone of about 22,000 votes was almost 4 times his winning margin statewide. And turnout improved in Democratic strongholds of Milwaukee and Madison as well. Neubauer beat Dallett's vote totals in both cities, but by far smaller margins. Now here's our quote. Here's our buddy Joe Zepecki. Clearly, Republicans got their base activated this year in a way they didn't last year. No one should be under any impression that progressives fell asleep on this race. Well, it's always great when our buddy gets quoted in the paper, Dom. It's unfortunate that Joe is just absolutely freaking wrong.
Do tell, Crudy, why is our pal Joe Zepecki Communications, quoted in The Hill stating that there should be no impression that progressives fell asleep on this race? Why did
because
you disagree?
They in fact did. Because they in fact did. They fell asleep at the switch, Tom. Let me read a little bit farther, a little more, another small quote from Joe. The results underscore what should be obvious by now. Wisconsin is a closely divided state at the tipping point of either party's path to 270 electoral votes. In the last 20 years, a race as close as Tuesday's contest was far more likely than a blowout for either party. In presidential, Senate, and gubernatorial contests since the beginning of the century, only 3 politicians, former President Obama, Senator Tammy Baldwin, and former Senator Herb Kohl, have won statewide elections by double-digit margins. 4 of those elections, 2000, 04, and 16, presidential contests and Evers' win over Walker, have been decided by margins of 1 percentage point or less. The norm, again, Joe Zepecki, I quote here, the norm in Wisconsin is really close statewide elections. Here we are again. We got another tied race. Well, I don't disagree with that statement, Joe. Just the prior.
Crudy. I'll bring it home from...
Doesn't mean I don't love Joe. It just means I completely disagree with him.
The Republican enthusiasm came as something of a perfect storm, with their candidate under assault for his views on religion in the public square and gay rights. Hagedorn backers promoted mailings that equated the conservative candidate with President Trump and Trump's nominees to the Supreme Court. They did it against Justice Kavanaugh, one mailer read. Now it's the same radical, out-of-state special interest groups that are spending millions pushing liberal Lisa Neubauer are spreading false attacks against conservative rule of law judge Brian Hagedorn. 3 years after Trump became the first Republican to win Wisconsin since George H.W. Bush in '88, Democrats already planned a renewed focus on rebuilding their Midwestern blue wall. The 2018 midterms showed Democrats the path to winning, and the 2019 spring election showed Republicans their version. What Hagedorn shows is that the conservative grassroots can help fuel a victory and that Republicans can still win across the rural and suburban coalition that put us on the map in Wisconsin, Reisinger said. But we're got to do just that. We can't have part of that coalition wane or drop off in 2020 because the explosive Madison turnout we've seen of late will swamp us.
Hell yes, we will. And there's still a strong possibility that the dynamics of a presidential race will be quite different, Tom. Because even in liberal old Madison, my hometown, 30% turnout? We had 93% in the midterms. Statewide, this election was decided by what? A nearly record-setting 27% of the vote? But to say liberals didn't fall asleep at the switch? Hell, yes, we did. Yes, we did, or we would have won. When the margin of loss is 5,000, 6,000 votes, Dom, it's especially galling. It tastes like burning a little bit.
It hurts just a little more than a 10-point ass kicking?
I almost feel like it does. Yeah, I almost feel like it does because almost any additional effort on behalf of the liberals, on behalf of the left, could have tilted the scales. In fact, Dom, there are perhaps better written articles out there that show and describe just exactly what I'm talking about. Now, we're not going to spend the whole show again rehashing the disastrous loss of the left, but it does merit a little bit more time, and I think we'll get there. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, WTTN 1580 AM. What, can't we go to break? What do you need, my friend?
We're going to break, and I would just say this. And one reason why I would also disagree with our pal Joe Zepecki. You know, the polling was 42-34. It's a fairly nice cushion. Did you get the sense from any of the established, anybody in the campaigns, and anybody out there in Democratic, progressive, liberal world that this was going to be a razor thin margin?
No,
none whatsoever. There was no sense of urgency ever anywhere that I sensed on this race. Just saying.
Folks, now we're going to go to break. I had a little bit of urgency. I feel like we should take a short commercial break, do our part. Hell, we'll open up the toll-free phone lines for the folks at 844-967-2789. We'll be right back. More Devil's Advocates.
Won't back down.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
All workers benefit from unions, as unions create the highest standard in wages, health and welfare, retirement security, and workplace protections. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, President of Teamsters General Local 200. Your voice is your strength. The ability to build a stronger and better tomorrow begins today. Teamster Local 200 represents workers in numerous industries, and our team is ready to sit down with you and your co-workers to build your unified team. Call Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit us on Facebook or www.teamsterslocal200.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The 82nd Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Eric Holder.
You're talking about taking away from an Attorney General and from the executive branch, core executive branch functions, and moving them to the legislative side is something that's inconsistent with the federal constitution and the Wisconsin state constitution.
It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's the Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon on Real Resistance Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio, and the party line always open, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, got another little submission for the consideration of our audience. The Intelligencer. Democrats may have lost Wisconsin for a frickin' decade.
The Intelligencer, that's NewYorkMag.com. That's just not some Wisconsin folks talking. This is national news. Let's hear what they had to say. Crudy, in Wisconsin's gubernatorial race last year, Democrat Tony Evers defeated Scott Walker by 1% statewide, but won a majority of votes in only 36 of the state's 99 assembly districts. That same night, Democratic candidates won 53% of all ballots cast for their state assembly, even as Republicans won a 27-seat majority in that body. In other words, the 2018 midterms confirmed that the GOP has gerrymandered Wisconsin's electoral map so aggressively it will be essentially impossible for the Democratic Party to gain control of that purple state's legislature until its maps are redrawn. This point was not lost on the Wisconsin GOP. Immediately following Evers' victory, Republicans convened a special legislative session to transfer powers from the popularly elected branch of government that Democrats had just won to the undemocratically elected branch that the GOP couldn't lose. These developments forced Wisconsin Democrats to confront a harrowing possibility that their triumph in the governor's race would not stop the GOP from locking up the state legislature for another decade. In 2021, Wisconsin will redraw all its electoral maps to comport with the new census. And Evers will have the power to veto any gerrymander the legislature enacts. But Republicans could reject that veto and bring a lawsuit claiming that the legislature has the authority over redistricting. And if the conservative majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court buys that argument, just as it bought the GOP's case for the constitutionality of voter ID laws and union-busting measures, then it will be game over. And Democrats will be all but incapable of governing Wisconsin before 2030. But there was one way out of this maddening impasse. In 2019 and 2020, Wisconsin will hold Supreme Court elections. And if liberal judges could win both those contests, which would be settled by the good old-fashioned popular vote, then Democrats would ensure their influence over redistricting. And not only that, a liberal state Supreme Court could also roll back the GOP's legislature's power grab, its various voter suppression efforts, and perhaps even its assault on collective bargaining rights crew.
So you're saying this is not a happy story, Dom?
Maybe it has a happy ending, Crudy. Let's find out.
Robert Kraft style? What's more, liberals were in prime position to win the 2020 Supreme Court election, as it would be held the same day as the state's presidential primary, when Democrats are expected to turn out in far larger numbers than Republicans, since their party's nomination will be hotly contested, while Donald Trump is all but certain to win renomination in a cakewalk. So, to liberate Wisconsin from anti-democratic rule, all Democrats really had to worry about was winning this year's Supreme Court election. And in a rare stroke of luck, Wisconsin conservatives managed to rally behind a reactionary judge so extreme, two of the GOP's most reliable donors, the State Chamber of Commerce and the Realtors Association, you know, WMC, WRA, we talk about them all the time here, I read on, could not bring themselves to support him. Specifically, Judge Brian Hagedorn had written that the NAACP was a disgrace to America, and that the homosexual intercourse should be a criminal offense because the idea that homosexual behavior is different than bestiality as a constitutional matter is unjustifiable. Did I mention that's a direct quote from now Justice Hagedorn? I read on. The judge had also recently co-founded a K-8 Christian school in Milwaukee suburbs that does not allow LGBT teachers, students, or parents in its campus. His liberal counterpart, Wisconsin Court of Appeals Chief Justice Lisa Neubauer, had no similar baggage, and she had a commanding advantage in fundraising for most of the race. Some conservative groups resigned themselves to her victory weeks before Tuesday's election. So a lot of Wisconsin Democrats are suffering from a bad case of 2016 deja vu this morning. This one posted yesterday. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race, they're quoting elsewhere, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that liberals needed to win to have a shot at taking majority control of the court next year. appeared headed for a recount, with the conservative candidate declaring victory while holding a narrow lead following Tuesday's election. Conservative Brian Hagedorn, who was Walker's chief legal counsel for 5 years, led Liberal-backed Lisa Neubauer by 5,911 votes out of 1.2 million cast, based on unofficial results. That is a difference of about 0.49 percentage point, close enough for Neubauer to request a recount, but she would have to pay for it. Hagedorn declared victory early Wednesday morning. I bring this little piece to conclusion, Dom. It's conceivable that a recount could throw the election to Neubauer. So conceivable, Republicans are already laying the groundwork for delegitimizing such a result. But for the moment, it appears that while we were all debating a presidential primary that's still 10 months away, many progressives slept through an immensely consequential and by most accounts easily winnable election against a reactionary bigot in Wisconsin again.
I think it's time to go to break. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. Obviously, that particular author in NewYorkMag.com, they believe Eric Levitz, his name, they disagree with our pal Joe Zepecki. Both of them can't be right. Both of them can't be wrong. But I again would say, was there any sense of urgency in the air anywhere surrounding this election? And I didn't feel it at all.
No, nor I, Dom. And, you know, as I mentioned yesterday, it's not like we don't get some input from the electorate. We're getting up to 20,000 comments a day on our Facebook page. I don't even read them all. I'm sorry to say it. Dom doesn't read any of them.
Come on, I do.
But you can't read that much input, that much reaction. Dominic, we blew it. The left, we blew it, and we blew it for up to a decade because the next round of gerrymandering, that one could stick too. Come back with us. Hopefully, we got a fine guest waiting in the wings. He is Ben Wickler, candidate for chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
Want to see the super sexiest political show on earth? Check out the Devil's Advocates on YouTube.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com. Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by
we'd
Feeding
like to welcome
America
another
and
fine
the
guest.
Ad Council. Everybody knows somebody who's going to forget.
That's my husband.
Chris, my best friend.
Mi hermano, Humberto.
But now, Wisconsin requires voters to show a photo ID at the polls before casting their ballot in the upcoming elections. So remind someone you know to remember their
military ID,
Wisconsin driver license,
or free Wisconsin state ID.
There are several different IDs you can use. Visit bringit.wisconsin.gov or call 1-866-VOTE-WIS for the complete list. And don't forget to bring it.
Tráelo.
Bring it to the ballot.
Sponsored by the Wisconsin Elections Commission.
Ignacio, what do you got for us today?
Hey, I quit paying attention for like maybe one day, and all hell breaks loose. That goes to show me I got to pay attention every single day to your radio program, or else who knows what'll happen.
If you don't listen to the Devil's Advocates 3 hours every day, Nacho, you're missing a lot.
You got that right. I just learned that today. I turned it on and I'm listening, and you really just rocked my world today. I was just totally blown away.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Totally blown away.
For News Talk 1510 AM and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. 1 year following an 11.5-point margin of victory for Rebecca Dallett, a 12-point swing has given Brian Hagedorn a victory over Lisa Neubauer. Just 27% of voting-age Wisconsinites participated in the spring election, and under 6,000 votes separates the two candidates. Former House Speaker and failed vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan says freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ignored his advice to, quote, just take it easy, just watch things for a while. Highs today around 40 degrees, rain forecasted for the afternoon. Overnight lows in the mid-30s. Friday, cloudy with highs in the mid to upper 50s. Saturday, highs near 60 with cloudy skies. For News Talk 1510 and 1580, I'm Keith Gostad.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest. He joins me here in the Broadcast Bunker 2.0. He is Ben Wickler. He is a candidate for chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Ben, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Great to be here and great to be in person in the town I call home.
Thanks, Ben.
Excellent. Ben, I had your opponent only in that he is also running for DPW chair.
Candidate, let's call him.
Fellow candidate.
Yeah, there you
David
go.
Bowen on the air joined us in the studio yesterday, and I got to tell you, it was a little bit of a rough interview. I gave him the rough and tumble, a few under the pile. So first of all, sorry about the rough treatment, David, but I got to ask you, what the hell happened, Ben? Tuesday night in the election, I know you hold no official capacity with the Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin, but what role do they play? What culpability do they have for this loss?
Here's what I'll say two things. The first thing is the other side in this race, they out-organized us ultimately. They used a flood of dark money in the final week, which is exactly what we should know is coming in every single election in this state. That is how Republicans win. They bring in piles of dark money at the end and they flood the airwaves, they flood the ground game, and that's how they pull out their wins when they win. And the only way that we defeat them is if we flood in, all of the people power you can possibly muster in an all points bulletin, all hands on deck kind of way. And I know tons of activists across the state who, like me, were knocking on doors, were making phone calls, who were doing what they could to get out the vote. But you ask the average Democrat on the street in this state, whether there was a history-shaping mega election that was on a knife's edge, and they'll say, there was? Like, people did not know. And I think we all have to figure out how we make sure that never happens again. The number one thing in my mind is you got to organize. You got to organize continuously all the way through the end. And I put this on, I think, everybody that collectively, it didn't feel like an emergency. And the fact is, the last 2-3 months should have had that kind of feeling. And I know, it's a weird moment because we're coming off all these statewide victories last year. We've got the governors already in this kind of giant battle with the Republicans in the state legislature. There's a lot happening. People are announcing every day, about 10 candidates a day are announcing their candidates for president. But if you clear away all the noise, this race, this had has the potential to shape what happens here for the next decade. And like right now, the fact is this is still happening because the canvass is happening. They're counting every vote in every county across the state. They need volunteers in every single county to watch the votes getting counted. And we know that in 2011, at this phase, this is when Prosser pulled it out. He got a 7,500 vote swing in the time after the election in the canvass, the thing happening right now. And that's why he's on the state Supreme Court. So there's both, how do we make sure this never happens again? And there's also, what is every single thing we can do right now? And to me, it is finding volunteers. It is trying to chip in money so we have the power to fight to count every vote. It's a long shot. I don't think there's any. I'm not going to blow any smoke about this is still a jump ball, but it's possible that there are votes out there that we don't know about. And the thing we cannot let happen is for any of those votes to go uncounted because we drop the ball in this sort of final after the buzzer moment.
Not to be disagreeable, but
bring it.
Is that okay? Let's set aside what modest disagreement I may have with you. I certainly agree the process should go forth for the reasons you set forth. Let's just ask, then is it the campaign's responsibility at this point to raise that money? I've been getting, email solicitations. I'm not feeling very generous right now with my cash. I didn't give money to Jill Stein either. Volunteerism, I'm always for that. I'm always for the political activism. But ultimately, I'm going to have a hard time digging deep and pulling some jing out of my pocket for a recount at this point. Ben, should that be on the campaign? Maybe some of the consultants could chip in some of their, checks towards this recount effort, sir?
It is hard to raise money for a canvass or for a recount. And the recount itself, if there's a
how much money are we talking, if I may ask?
So if there's a full state recount, I know that after 2016 it cost like $1.7 million, and that was, or maybe it was $2 million.
Did we stick it to Jill Stein for like $3.4 million though? Ultimately,
there's a lot of millions of dollars in that race. Now there's a lot more votes in that race, so then a number of votes cast is higher. The recount costs were higher. I don't know whether a recount will make sense. We're in this sort of first phase. We're in the count right now. And the question when you're doing what's called the canvass, after the sort of first tallies are put up by the county clerks, there's this sort of manual process of inputting all the vote totals, checking all the ballots that go in, that creates the official count that gets certified by the state. That's when Prosser won in 2011. That's when Kloppenburg, who we thought had won by several thousand votes, lost during the canvass. So that's happening right now. And the amounts of money, I don't have a total dollar figure. It's thousands and thousands of dollars, and no one wants to give at a moment like this, which is when a few dollars goes the furthest. So I personally am chipping in my $10-20. I think it's worth hitting this moment, and the decision about whether to do a full scale recount comes after that. If there's no evidence that there's any kind of big box of uncounted ballots, a recount's not gonna change an outcome where it's 6,000 votes. But we just saw this decade a 7,500 vote swing in a state Supreme Court race. So
that was crazy.
That was crazy, but that happened. I mean, the crazy things in every election are happening right now. If we were Republicans, we would be calling the Koch brothers and telling them to, they probably are doing that at this exact moment. The Republicans never stop in these fights. And if you think about, Bush versus Gore didn't want to have a fight at the end, and then we lost. It's my gospel is fight and organize at every step. And you don't always win when you do that, but you always lose when you don't do that. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm fired up about this.
Okay, Ben, I am also fired up, but let me tell you my opinion. The likelihood we're going to find some equally incompetent Democrat-leaning clerk in one of the blue counties that could match the incomparable incompetence of Kathy Nicholas and finding, Brookfield's votes, that seems so unlikely. Let me ask you, is there any chance that there was any sort of electoral malfeasance? If you ask my audience, they probably think there's a greater likelihood that someone was trying to tap the voting machines if we do this recount. Is it going to be a hand recount, and will it give credibility to the outcome, even if it's not the outcome that some of us might long for?
In other words, if there's election tampering, would a recount find it out?
Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. So I will be totally honest. I don't know the answer to that question. And you probably were watching the 2016 recount, with a pretty sharp eye. Do you sense that if there had been actual, electronic vote tampering in that election, would that recount have uncovered it?
Maybe. Depends on where it occurred, because unfortunately some of the ballots went right back in the same machines.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was dependent upon the individual county clerk. Well, Waukesha County, they're doing it their way.
Yeah.
Waukesha is
we
going
know
to
what way their way is.
And we do. And if I suspected there could be, flipping of votes as the case may be, it's probably going to be in a red-leaning county when you see 160,000 additional votes coming on the Republican, the conservative side.
Yep.
And you see the unlikely outcome, at least upon the internal polling and the
totally.
attitude of really both sides. Very few thought that Hagedorn had this chance.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think there's a greater likelihood of some sort of tampering or malfeasance, probably on the right, than some incompetent lefty losing a satchel full of dim votes, sir.
I think that's a point fairly taken. And I to me, it is just an ongoing national outrage and an incomprehensible, ridiculous, crazy thing that voting machines that we see high school students being able to hack at hackathons, being able to plug their computers in, all this stuff, that there's not an all hands on deck effort to stop it. You would think that on the right, they would be paranoid enough about hackers on the left that they would care about this. But it's like with the Electoral College. The right feels like as long as the current system is favoring them, they don't want to put up any walls against vulnerabilities. Because if you keep falling off the bicycle to the right, you're not going to try to tilt to the left at all. And
wasn't it?
It's just we don't know how many things have gone sideways because of that at this point, but we know that the right doesn't want us to find out and doesn't want to fix it.
Well, I believe it was Roger Stone, the dirty trickster for Trump, that accused Scott Walker of fixing like 5 prior elections in the state of Wisconsin.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Ben Wickler, a candidate for the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and a senior advisor at MoveOn.org, joins us in studio. All right, Ben, we read from the Hill article. Joe Zepecki, our pal, a Dem strategist here in Milwaukee, was quoted saying, the progressives, no way that they fell asleep at the wheel. We read another article from NewYorkMag.com saying that, they did fall asleep, and this is going to perhaps cost progressive movement here in Wisconsin like 10 years. A couple of opposing ideas there. Ben, want to get your opinion. Do you think more could have been done?
So I think they seem contrasting. There's a sense in which both are true. It's both the case that there was a huge effort. There was, we won more votes, 46,000 more votes in this election than we did in the last state Supreme Court election. And it's also true that more could have been done. It's possible for both of those things to be true at the same time, and I think that they are. If you look at, I remember in 2004 when Kerry lost to George W. Bush, there was this sense across the progressive movement that, we all exceeded our vote targets. We exceeded our volunteer shifts at Move On. It was the biggest GOTV effort that they'd ever put on. There were staffers all across the country. It was a massive effort. And the right out-organized the Democrats. They threw down harder than we did. And the answer to that, I just think, whether you win or lose, the answer is never that we did enough. The answer is always, how do we do more? And I think in this case, if you watch MSNBC, it's not like there were weeks on end about talking about how this is the way that the right plans to lock in gerrymandering and lock in the anti-democratic, small d democratic system that they've got is by winning the Supreme Court races. No one was talking about it. And, I think I like every Democratic activist that I know. I've been going, and David Bowen, we've both been going to county party meetings all across the state, to grassroots dinners. Lisa Neubauer has been at these events. She's been talking to people. Folks have been doing canvas shifts. I think the kind of the core of people who never miss a fight. They really showed up this time. But I also think, collectively, the public didn't get the sense of how much is on the line. And we got a ton of votes, but there's an even bigger group that didn't vote. It's 26.6% turnout. And I don't have the magic silver bullet for how you get the public to show up in force like a presidential election for a spring election. But I do know that if we had, we would have won in a landslide. And it is always the question of how do you raise the level of urgency higher so that we never have a morning like yesterday morning again. It just kills me. It just kills me to especially close. And to think, if you'd had 20 more volunteer shifts in all 72 counties, like we could have eked it over the edge. How do we get those? Like, how do we squeeze more water from this rock? Because that's the only way that we as Democrats have to win elections, is by organizing.
Well, the Republicans, the conservatives, they use right-wing talk radio, and they got a hell of a tool over there in their toolbox, and they used it. And they used it continuously, repetitiously, and to great impact. You talk about 22,000 more votes showing up in Waukesha. Well, that wasn't just a flyer from AFP.
That's right.
That was
That's
because
totally right.
This was a point of redemption, not just for Scott Walker, but for right-wing talk radio. And I guess I'll make my point thus. Scott Walker did 6 hours of pro-Hagedorn infomercials Monday and Tuesday on Righty Whitey Talk Radio just down the dial. They know it. They embrace it. And we on the left, seemingly don't understand the impact, especially in the Milwaukee media market.
Yeah, if we'd had 81 progressive talk radio stations in the state of Wisconsin going 24 hours a day in the last 3 months, I can't imagine that we would have fallen 6,000 votes behind at the end of the day. The amount there's all these studies of the power of right-wing talk radio and also of Fox News on what happens to an electorate. And it is on a par with like running a presidential campaign, except it's happening every year. It is a profound radicalizing force on the right. And what you guys are doing, and what a handful of podcasters and warriors on social media, what the too small but like incredibly resolute forces of progressive media are trying to do, it is an antibiotic in the face of a wall of infection from the right, trying to inoculate the public and kill off these germs of disinformation and right-wing propaganda. And it is a struggle that cannot stop, because if you just pay attention to mainstream media and bless the reporters out there who wake up every day just to uncover facts, but regular news does not convey a sense of when there are alarm bells going off. If like the fact that you guys are not afraid to have a point of view and a lot of points of view, you can actually give people a sense of the stakes in a fight like this. And there are people in a lot of parts of the state who have not had access to that. And that is shame on us collectively as a progressive movement that we haven't figured out how to get the message to every single person.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest here in the Madison studios. I guess it's a studio now. Hardly a broadcast bunker anymore, Dom. I think it
looks
nicer
all
where
official
you're
now.
Standing. Yeah, kind of looks good. We got Ben Wickler. He is a candidate for chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, a senior advisor at MoveOn.org, and hopefully a friend of ours. We'll see. I'm kind of rough on friends sometimes. Just ask Joe Zapecki. Come right back. Devil's Advocates, you're listening to WRRD, 1510 AM, WTTN, 1580 AM, and coming soon, Talk 92.7
yes!
in Madison.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community, because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill, bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So, to stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. A referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Wisconsin did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
Interested in becoming a licensed high school official? Go to highschoolofficials.com to learn more and begin the application process.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez, I got to ask you, in what percentage did the fact that Real Resistance Radio, WRD 1510, the fact that you can come after Barr with us on Brady Street, Tom, how much did that factor into the site selection of Milwaukee, sir?
There's that old saying, what's good for General Motors is good for America. What's good for Resistance Radio is good for Wisconsin and good for America. So it was huge.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have one foot in tomorrow.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio. And if you missed any of this fine program, please go online, domandcroot.com. You can download interviews and podcasts.
Dominic got a fine guest next to me here in the Madison Broadcast Bunker 2.0. He is Ben Wickler. He is a candidate for chair of the once great Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin. Ben, I got to ask you this question. If elected chairperson, how are you going to make sure Dem stop losing?
Never again, Ben.
From here on out.
Can you guarantee
every single election, I make a guarantee that we will do, what I can guarantee is that we will do everything we can to win. And there are things, first of all, I will say, going from 2016 to 2018, the fact that we had presidential level turnout here in 2018 and won every statewide, that is a credit, not only to the people in the party, but also to the people at the grassroots who the right thought they had broken. There's been, as you know, a decade-long effort to stomp on the neck of the progressive movement in this state, to break the institutions that can turn people out, to squish the spirit of progressives who believe in the history of this state, that this is a state that's about the idea of moving forward. The effort was to try to dismantle everything that has built up the progressive movement in this state, and the people refused to be broken. And that is something that, this Tuesday cannot diminish the fact that people rose up and ended the Scott Walker era. So we are building on something. We're not trying to reassemble Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty has, like Voltron, come back together into a mighty fighting robot. And that's, the next step is to take it up to the next level, because we know that Trump is turning every one of his guns on this state. And we know that every dark money force that Republicans have amassed in the United States and wherever the hell else is going to be trained on Wisconsin. So in order to win here in 2020, and especially to build a party and apparatus strong enough that we can carry that into the Supreme Court election next spring, into local elections next spring, and then in 2022, when we have actually redrawn maps, we need to build like never before. And
I'm not sure if we're going to have redrawn maps to the satisfaction of the Democrats. We might have blown that on Tuesday, Ben.
Oh God.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Tammy Baldwin won by double digits. Tony Evers won by the skin of his teeth, and down the ticket, I think Godlewski fared slightly better, but it was damn close in the the statewide races. On the legislative level, I wouldn't have called the 18 race any sort of success. I know gerrymandering, I've been paying attention, but we could have won a couple on the edges. There could have been some strategic planning, and there were some damn fine candidates running in those.
There were a ton of amazing candidates. One of the candidates is on my ticket. Lee Snodgrass got 46.6% of the vote in an incredibly gerrymandered state Senate district, and she fought her heart out. And her team organized people on the ground. They were using text messaging. They were doing all kinds of stuff, and they came pretty close, but they didn't win. And to me, I'm not going to lie, it is a steep uphill battle to win state legislative races with these maps. I also think we have to try, and we have to try things that we haven't tried before. So I'll give one example of something that I think is an opportunity on the table for the party. At Move On, so I should note, I stepped down from Move On 2 weeks ago to focus on this race for chair of the Democratic Party. But at Move On, we took a page from Bernie 2016, their use of Hustle. And Hustle is a peer-to-peer text messaging app where volunteers just press a button to send a text to someone to ask them to do something. Some folks on Bernie's team, including Saikat Chakrabarty, who's now AOC's chief of staff, started building an open software tool that makes it so you can send text messages to folks at 1/10 the cost. And at MoveOn, our team of developers and a huge network of volunteer, computer programmers built that into a full-featured tool that now has transformed the way we organize at MoveOn. And here in Wisconsin, the Working Families Party and our Wisconsin Revolution used it in 2018 to great effect. I did texting parties with, folks from those groups and a bunch of activists, texted thousands of people. We can do that at the state party and make that available to every candidate, every state assembly candidate. In the last election, only the handful of most targeted state Senate candidates had texting tools. If it costs 1/10 as much, every candidate can use it. And when you do that, not only can you text voters to make sure they vote, you can text people to make sure they show up for canvas shifts and volunteer shifts and phone bank shifts. Not everyone picks up the phone. Not everyone answers the door. Everybody looks at their texts, for better or for worse. And I heard from people how much the Hagedorn campaign texted the hell out of everyone who'd ever been anywhere close to the Republican Party to get out their vote this last Tuesday. We should have, our texting operation, we have the young people. Our electorate's more diverse. We are more cell phone centric. We should be out texting Republicans by a mile. And if I'm elected chair, we're definitely going to do that.
Well, thank goodness Neubauer buried my 12-year-old in ads on YouTube. Dom, you got any quick questions? We're almost out of time.
I guess just one. I mean, how do you, as a non-party guy here, Ben, continually keep the party faithful motivated and growing without getting people exhausted? Every election is the most election ever, right? How do you keep the momentum going?
I think that you get more people power when you get more people feeling more powerful. The more people can see the impact of what they do, the more they can experience being part of victory, even if it's on an issue fight or a local race, the more it becomes addictive to stay involved. And to me, fighting in every fight, looking for wins in places where we might not have fought otherwise, that's how you keep people involved. The experience of being part of something bigger than yourself that actually makes a difference.
Ben Wickler, candidate for chair of the Democratic Party of the great state of Wisconsin. If you win, sir, do not let us down. I will hold you personally accountable. I certainly appreciate you coming down here to the Broadcast Bunker 2.0. We'll go to hour 2.0. Dom, more Devil's Advocates on the other side. Thank you, Ben Wickler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroop.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe.
Here in the Badger State, we have our own expressions. When we're looking to go on vacation, we state, well, let's go up north. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, president of Teamsters Local 200. Here in the Badger State, we also have another expression, union yes. The strength of the labor movement depends on elected officials here in Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. that support the values of working families that raise the standards for all. Give us a call at Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit our website at www.teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200. Be engaged.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Not the missing boy. Border threat retreat. I'm Mike Moss. A DNA test has proved a teenager who claimed to be the missing Illinois boy Timothy Pitson is not the missing boy. The teen was taken into custody in Kentucky after being found wandering on the streets and claimed he'd been kidnapped for the last 8 years. There's no word on his real identity. Maybe it's not surprising that a couple that made a fortune online should announce their divorce on Twitter. That's the case today for Amazon's Jeff and Mackenzie Bezos. More from correspondent Steve Kastenbaum.
Mackenzie Bezos will get $35.6 billion worth of Amazon stock. That's according to her post on Twitter announcing that she and Jeff Bezos had reached a divorce settlement. She wrote that she was happy to be giving her soon-to-be ex 75% of their stock in Amazon, along with voting control of her shares. She's also not taking any of Jeff Bezos' interests in the Washington Post newspaper and his aerospace company, Blue Origin. According to an SEC filing, Mackenzie Bezos will retain shares representing about 4% of Amazon's common stock, making her the third biggest shareholder in the company. Steve Kastenbaum, New York.
President Trump is backing away from a threat to close the southern border.
Frankly, better but less drastic than closing the borders to tariff the cars coming in. And I will do it, just like you know I will do it. I don't play games.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz says closing the border would cost jobs and money for his state.
Millions of jobs in Texas depend upon international trade, and in particular trade with Mexico.
The Illinois Supreme Court has ruled a man who worked for the state for just one day is entitled to a pension worth tens of thousands of dollars because promised benefits can't be diminished. President Trump says there's been progress in China trade talks, but still, there's some ways to go to get a deal. The Dow up 166 points. I'm Mike Moss.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean. Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
The first Israeli moonshot has passed its most crucial test yet. Correspondent Jan Johnson reports.
The small Israeli spacecraft swept into a planned orbit around the moon after crossing nearly 3.5 million miles, keeping it on track for a lunar landing on April 11th. A top executive with Israel Aerospace Industries calls it the most significant maneuver since launch 7 weeks ago. Although he also says the landing a week from now, in his words, makes us quite a bit more nervous. If all goes according to plan next week, Israel will become the fourth country to pull off a moonshot and landing. I'm Jan Johnson.
Climatologists in Alaska say unusually high temperatures set records in March and likely are a reflection of the upward warming climate trend. Temperatures in northern, western, and interior Alaska exceeded the daily average by double digits. Denali reported zero snow 2 weeks earlier than ever recorded. I'm Mike Moss.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
We got Mark Pocan live via phone. Mark, does Paul Ryan hate poor people?
Oh, he hates poor people and middle-class people. I mean, I think when he was probably 5 years old playing with Play-Doh, trying to, adjust the taxes on Play-Doh. And so, to be fair, I think he's doing what he always said he was going to do. It's just no one actually believed he was either that cruel, evil, or dumb to do it.
The Devil's Advocates, weekday afternoons on 1510 a.m., Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
For News Talk 1510 a.m. and 1580 a.m., my name is Keith Gostad. Starting tomorrow, Wisconsin citizens will have their first opportunity in more than a decade to testify on the issue of partisan gerrymandering of state legislative and congressional districts. This takes place at sanctioned state legislative public hearings scheduled by the Joint Finance Committee during the month of April around Wisconsin. The hearing this Friday is at the Pontiac Convention Center in Janesville. Other dates include Oak Creek on April 10th and UW River Falls on April 15th. You can submit written comments about gerrymandering at budgetcomments@legis.wisconsin.gov. For News Talk 1510 and 1580, I'm Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Oh, God, Trump's talking.
I see that.
Welcome back, Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, want to thank our last fine guest, a fine one indeed, a tall, strapping lad like myself, Ben Wickler. He is candidate for chair of the Democratic Party of the great state of Wisconsin. As he mentioned, he has stepped away from his role at MoveOn.org, but that was most recently on his resume. And I would peg Ben at a solid 6'4", Dom.
Well, tall fella.
6'4", maybe 6'5". You know, tall people are more trustworthy.
That is an absolute fact.
I do not believe it for a minute.
I don't know if it's a fact, but I do know it's true. You know, just amongst present company.
People are talking about it. Honestly, I just heard Crudy talk about it, and now I can verify that people are talking about it, that tall people are just way more trustworthy.
It's very powerful.
844-967-2789. We are your trusted name in political punditry and Spengaliism and all sorts of strategery here on Real Resistance Radio. Let's get to the phones, Dom. I have a few waiting for us. I believe Mark from the SAC. I believe he's first. Mark, welcome back.
Well, thank you. The song "Short People" just came to mind when you were picking on poor Dom there.
I know.
And I'm only 5'9", so I'd probably fall into the same category there.
Well, you're a virtual giant compared to Dom.
I liked a lot of what Ben said. It sounds like he's a little more on board and recognizing how important the media message, getting out there and just hammering home on with what you got. I mean that the Democratic Party, such as that it is, needs to get their act together and start getting people recognizing now that 2020 is coming soon, and that if we want to just at least make some gain in the Supreme Court, we have to elect a Democrat in 2020, even though they'll still be in the minority.
Mark, let me ask you: Are you a paying member of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin?
No, I am not, because they just are.
Because you don't want to join a loser organization.
Well,
Mark?
and George Carlin said something about never joining a group. So, but ultimately, wouldn't it behoove perhaps those who are dissatisfied with a party that they're not belong to perhaps pay the $20 a month and show up and start challenging decision making and whatever the issues are right then and there all across the state?
And you're probably right, but I mean I took two extra voters to the polls, got them to vote for the right candidate. So that was my part, but I didn't, that.
How do you know for sure, Mark?
Did you fill out their ballot for them?
No, I know for sure, because one of them was 90 years old, and she thought that Hagedorn was just detestable.
She's very perceptive, that 90-year-old woman.
Yeah, that it's sad that and perhaps the messaging that they were delivering on Hagedorn was not effective enough. I mean, maybe they should have gone more that he would deny emergency contraception to rape victims. Maybe that's the message that may have swayed some of the people that were going to vote for him.
Yeah.
That maybe that's something that because.
Or that the NAACP was, his condemnation of that organization. I didn't see anything on that. Now I was paying attention, but I didn't hear that till recently.
Yeah, and I think that the ad, like some have said that the ads, that condemning the school he started and his anti-gay attitudes, maybe it was a little too much of that message there. They should have gotten to the other messages there.
Well, it probably helped inspire some of the wingnuts. Hey, he's the right kind of homophobe. Go vote Hagedorn. I mean, that's effectively what it did to a percentage. I mean, we forget 30%, the Trump-loving sort. Well, they're basically homophobic, misogynist, and racist, or at least a large majority. The core Trumpsters are. So when you put a message out there, you're shining a bright light saying, hell, it's very important that you get out, you crazies, and vote for this guy. He's your kind of crazy.
And on the Republican side, they all know the importance of these elections, and somehow we need to get the message drilled into people's heads that all these elections are important. That you need to get out there and vote in all these elections, because you just can't lay low, because we easily could have gotten 10,000-20,000 more people to vote in Milwaukee and 10,000-20,000 more people to vote in Madison, and and then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I would say there was just approximately 1 million voters just from November to April that stayed home. 1 million.
Wow. And thanks for the call, Mark. Always appreciate your perspective. And I'm down. Ultimately, yeah, they all matter, right? But as I asked Ben Wickler, is how do you maintain that level of vigilance, this constant sense
Donald Trump is the president. How tough should it be right now?
People get wore out, man. People get tired. People get burned out. You cannot maintain an emotional, active level like that day after day after day after day.
I've been doing it for 7 years or more. Every day, day after day after day.
Are you a paying member of the Democratic Party, Crudy?
Yes, I am, although my dues are probably coming due again.
So I think, does it matter if someone... Does it matter more? Should people, if you're going to bitch about an organization, shouldn't you be a member of it before you perhaps go nuts all over it based on some operational decision making that perhaps you disagreed with?
Well, sure. Either you can whine, which I know I'm occasionally guilty of, you often, or you can take action. And if you're not putting yourself out there, no one has the right to Monday morning quarterback, be it Martha Lanning or anybody else, if they're unwilling to put themselves out there, certainly with half the passion that I try to display and half the effort that I put towards what we do each and every day, Dom. If you're not willing to do something, no, I don't think you're worthy of condemning another if you don't like the outcome of the election. But if you're someone out there busting your ass on behalf of the Democratic Party, and you know that we let this one get by, and perhaps this will have reverberations, butterfly effects for up to a decade, we could have just sealed another partisan gerrymander to the favor of Republicans for another decade. And there are no do-overs. We don't get a makeup. It's a loss, and it might be a loss that continues to haunt us for a decade. So I'm sorry, if you bust your ass and maybe you put some money out there, supported the candidate, or more importantly, you've gone out there and knocked the doors and busted your ass in whatever means you were capable of doing, and this is the outcome, I'd be mad as hell. And I am.
844-967-2789. Let's get some callers in here. Curtis from West Allis, you are up. Thanks, Curtis. What do you got today?
You have the right to be angry, Trudy. Be angry. And another thing is your guest, he didn't say the magic words. He didn't say about advertising himself on your radio station when he wants to run.
Well,
that's what I was waiting for.
He strikes me as a smart man. He'll get it.
Also, in a few minutes, actually at 5 o'clock, you know about the march going on at 5 o'clock, correct?
I have heard that there are national efforts. MoveOn.org is trying to encourage people, and I know all around the nation there are marches, but I had not seen, Curtis, anything to share with our audience here in the state of Wisconsin. Are you aware of a march? I was not aware.
I'm going to one at 5 o'clock. It's going to be going right down by your radio station. It's going to go from Marquette Park on the 800 block of Plankinton, and it's going to go to the Federal Building.
And for the sake of the audience, Curtis, what is the rationale and the reason behind this march?
This march is we have to act like a bunch of chihuahuas fighting at the ankles of the gentleman that Trump put in to cover the Mueller investigation. Because it should be, we paid for that, give it to us. That's what it's all about. We paid for this investigation. Why are you expunging it? Don't hide it. So I'm going to dress as Green Reaper to show that people shouldn't take it to the death. Because my dog is going to become the Mueller report, and he's going to wear a shirt on, and I'm going to dress as the Green Reaper to think like I'm dragging him to his grave.
And what's the dog's name again, Curtis? I'm sorry, I apologize to your dog. I've forgotten his name. I prefer when Ralph wears his Resistance Radio T-shirt.
Well, actually, I'm going to get one made for him, a nice one. So that's my progress right now.
I thought he had one of the Red R T-shirts, man. Ralph looks damn good. It's either
he wore too much, so
kind of like Dom.
Yeah, I wear mine too much as well. Thank you for the update, Curtis. Also appreciate your input today. Let's get one more.
And kind of like Ralph, Dom's belly drags on the ground.
No, hell no. I've been slimming up after vacation. Bob from
maybe
Waukesha.
That was me.
Bob from Waukesha, you are next. Thanks for calling. What do you got today?
Hey, Bob.
Well, I listened to you guys yesterday, and you're right. But you got to look at this. In Milwaukee, you've got ISN, you got TMJ, you got Fox News, and the conservatives religiously listen to these channels. Now, one thing that escapes me, like Lisa Neubauer or any of the candidates when they run, Scafidi will have them on the show. Why don't you go into the enemy's territory, take his questions, and give them right back to him? Why avoid a conservative station? Go on there and fight with them.
It's interesting, Bob.
Some opinion.
Governor Tony Evers has made more trips to WTMJ since his election than he has to this little radio product. And I don't mean just the devil's advocates. I know Tony doesn't always love me like I love him. But, Bob, Tony Evers doesn't even come around. Somebody texted me, one of my own guys, I believe, and said, well, maybe Tony Evers sees this as hostile territory. And I quickly reacted, as I'm prone to do, something of a knee-jerk reactionary. You know me, Dom. But I said, Tony Evers was in here the day before he got elected. Apparently he wasn't above us that day, Dom. So, I'm not against going to right-wing media, but it'd be nice if Tony even went to left-wing media once in a while. And, I get it. He's a sitting governor, and perhaps he had no role to offer in this Supreme Court race yesterday. Apparently he walked away from the Associated Press and other reporters without responding to their questions about the recount in the Neubauer race. But isn't he the most powerful Democrat in the state of Wisconsin? Couldn't he have said something? Couldn't he have come out and encouraged our audience? I mean, I know Pocan, I know other politicians did. I'm not clear why the governor of the state of Wisconsin, is avoiding this place. This ain't hostile territory.
I don't think he likes you, Crudy.
Well, get in line. Hold my beer. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back. If you don't like me, tell me all about it. Right to my face. 844-967-2789.
Republicans! F*** you, Democrats!
The guy was very, very angry and tired, and he wants to go home.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang.
Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt Pure Love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Live via phone, he is former U.S. Attorney James Santelle.
Firing Bob Mueller doesn't mean that the prosecution, the investigation goes away. Pardoning one individual does not mean that you undo everything that has been done before. So this notion that somehow by shutting down and by pardoning and by sort of stopping the process, you're also stopping the wheels of justice is simply, again, it's simply wrong.
The Devil's Advocates, weekday afternoons on 1510 a.m. Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
Legalize marijuana.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Stream on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, on the political party line. Talk or text 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we haven't even told the audience. Got another fine guest coming in the happy hour, and you'll be happy. We're going to talk about the Mueller report and Bill Barr, and the fact that these two things may not align. What Bill Barr's telling us is probably an underestimation of what the Mueller investigators believe is being asserted about that criminal, corrupt, traitorous president of the United States. Well, Jim Santelle, fine former U.S. attorney, joins us in the happy hour. In the meantime, want to wrap up this thought on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And since we have wasted an opportunity for a decade, Dom, we may never talk about this election again after this segment.
I'd be okay with that.
I might be okay with that as well. Let me read a headline from the Esquire. Charlie Pierce, another man who likes me, just doesn't like me. Acknowledges me every time I see him out in public. I did buy him some expensive brandy or something down in Des Moines one night, but never quite wants to make it on the show, Dom. Doesn't want to get caught up with some other progressive lefty talk product. He's an often visitor over on Stephanie Miller. But anyways, here's the headline. Wisconsin's progressive tradition is dead. Walkerism is not.
Oh.
How's that one ring in your ears?
Hurts a little, I got to be honest.
The Democrats appear to have blown a chance to seize the state Supreme Court majority Tuesday. Charlie Pierce, first he quotes the very, very bad beat from the Cap Times. You know the deal, everybody. Neubauer trails Hagedorn, recount probable 5,962 votes. And, they want to make sure all the votes are going to get counted. I, the cynic in the crowd, don't think there's going to be a bag of votes found by Kathy Nicholas or anybody else. But here's Charlie Pierce. He writes, I wouldn't bet your house on a recount's ability to change an outcome. Me neither. Just talk radio. So the Wisconsin Democrats seem to have blown a chance to flip the state Supreme Court for at least another couple of election cycles. The simple explanation is a familiar one. The Democrats, especially in Milwaukee, didn't turn out. And the Republican voters, especially in northern counties, did. There was a flood of dark money behind Hagedorn, and that turned the election in which Democratic candidate seemed to be favored on its head. But there's something deeper going on here. Hagedorn is an unusually wingy wingnut. His expressed opinions on LGBTQ issues were so wingnutty that the state's Realtors Association pulled its support. He was the House counsel for former Governor Scott Walker. Now there seems little doubt that Walkerism will be a permanent drag on the administration of Tony Evers, the Democrat who excised Walker himself from the governor's office. Moreover, it's now plain that the progressive tradition in Wisconsin politics, a proud heritage going back to the turn of the 20th century, is now defeated and exhausted. Something has to be built from scratch to take its place.
Damn. Charles Pierce, Esquire magazine, laying it out there. We'll get one more caller in, perhaps on this topic, this segment, 844-967-2789. Then, like all things, we must move on.
Well, the Dems will blow another opportunity in the future. There will always be more chances to discuss the shortcomings.
Pierce says something built from scratch to take its place, maybe it won't have the same outcomes. Wisco Paul, what do you think?
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
It's very forgettable, very forgettable. A whole decade? I'll be dead.
Come on, I have faith in you, Paul.
All right. Hey, I want to ask a question. I got the gist of your last guest, but do you think he really believes in using everything, including AM or FM talk radio, and supporting it with ads?
I'm not sure about the ads. You know, the guy hadn't even won the position yet. But let me finish. Ben Wickler does have a background with Air America. That was obviously the efforts of the left initially to go out there and buy their way onto the airwaves. Now, to my thought process, Paul, it was a bad business model. That's not Ben Wickler's fault. He was more of the production end. Think of Fancy Brian. That was his job. Ben Wickler did production for Air America many years ago. So I think he understands the power of the medium. Certainly, I know he understands the power of right-wing talk radio, Paul. But whether or not Ben Wickler or David Bowen or any other damn Dem will ever spend another nickel, as long as this big mouth's got a microphone, you know, it's debatable. Quite frankly, probably is debatable, Paul. I think they'd rather, you know, get their shovels out and bury me sometimes, Dom.
And then what? Then have nowhere to go ever? I don't think so. I think
that would be their preferred outcome.
A sea change. I think everything, life continues to evolve. I think a lot of people who are bitching about it should actually go up and join the party and, you know, like Charlie Pierce says, build it from scratch.
Dominic, we got a political party going on here every afternoon between 3 and 6 on WRD 1510 AM, WTTN 1580. You can always join the party. 844-967-2789. We'll be right back.
So legalize marijuana.
Do you want to be a winner? All the winners I know like the Devil's Advocates Facebook page.
The American dream is dead.
This aggression will not stand, man.
3, 2, 1. Oh no. Which button am I?
When every second counts, you can't wing it.
Guys, a little help up here?
In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So make a family home fire escape plan. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year so everyone knows what to do when they hear. Prepare your family at ready.gov/fire drill. Brought to you by FEMA, the Ad Council, and Make Safe Happen.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com. Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
All workers benefit from unions, as unions create the highest standard in wages, health and welfare, retirement security, and workplace protections. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, President of Teamsters General Local 200. Your voice is your strength. The ability to build a stronger and better tomorrow begins today. Teamsters Local 200 represents workers in numerous industries, and our team is ready to sit down with you and your co-workers to build your unified team. Call Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit us on Facebook or www.teamsterslocal200.com.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing.
Welcome to our good buddy, Congressman Mark Bocan. Mark, in some small part, this little radio product, the entire rationale for buying a radio station was opposition to Scott Walker. One person's telling me, be humble, Crudy. Take a day and just be humble. And another person's telling me, no, dance on Scott Walker's grave. So, Congressman, I've always admired your sage advice. Sir, what should I do? How should I react to this?
We should waltz, we should polka, and we should two-step. We should be dancing on this right now. To your credit, and I do want to give you guys credit. In Milwaukee, we have seen a shift, especially the suburban areas, from when we had just conservative radio to having you guys there. We have seen a shift in that area, and that's important because I think when people hear ideas, we do better. And I want to thank you for being there and doing what you do.
Hashtag Walker bashing.
Bye, Felicia.
For News Talk 1510 AM and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. Community organizer Justin Belinsky announced today his intention to run for the vacant aldermanic seat in Milwaukee's 8th District. This is the second time Belinsky has run for the seat. He will be running against Jocasta Zamaripa for the seat of retiring Alderman Bob Donovan. The Brewers beat the Reds 1-0 with Freddie Peralta giving up just 2 hits in 8 innings of work, Alex Wilson coming in to close. And the Bucks get back on the court tonight in Philly against the 76ers. Highs today around 40 degrees, rain forecasted for the afternoon. Overnight lows in the mid-30s. Friday, cloudy with highs in the mid to upper 50s. Saturday, highs near 60 with cloudy skies. For News Talk 1510 and 1580, I'm Keith Gostad.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Got tweeted at your buddy Kuchka. My buddy Kuchka as well. I like Kuchka. I just tease him. At Devil Radio. Hey, Crudy, I think at Charlie Pierce might consider coming on the show if you sported a Marquette U hat every once in a while instead of that ugly red Badger thing. I'm just saying, hashtag, so you're saying there's a chance. I'll give that one a like. Thanks, Kuchka.
And you can join us on the phones as well anytime. The political party line, 844-967-2789.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah!
All right, Brian.
I don't think there's a chance. He's already made it very clear to me that he doesn't want any more, regular gigs. Anyways, Dominic. Donald Trump
is still the president?
Is back. Well, he's back to his regular gig. And I don't mean the presidency. I mean yelling about the Mueller report, complaining, crying, and whining. And, of course, it's the New York Times reporting the latest, Dom. So, that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
Trump's not going to be happy about that. You got the article
I have the New York Times piece. Crudy, you got a Hill piece?
I'll follow you down this rabbit hole.
All right. This came out yesterday, and Donald Trump, as Crudy mentioned, freaking out today. Here is what Trump said in his tweets regarding this particular article, which we're going to get into right now. Here's Trump's response. The New York Times had no legitimate sources which would be totally illegal concerning the Mueller report. In fact, they probably had no sources at all. They're a fake newspaper who have already been forced to apologize for their incorrect and very bad reporting on me. Here's what the Times says. Some of Robert Mueller's investigators have told associates that Attorney General Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Barr indicated, according to government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations. And just for the record, the New York Times did respond to Trump's tweet today, saying
they also tweeted.
They tweeted out, tweeted back to Trump. False! Our reporters interviewed multiple government officials and others to gather the facts for the story, and they have a little link. You can read it right here. Well, let's do it. At stake in the dispute, the first evidence of tension between Barr and the special counsel's office is who shapes the public's initial understanding of one of the most consequential government investigations in American history. Some members of Mr. Mueller's team are concerned that because Mr. Barr created the first narrative of the special counsel's findings, Americans' views will have hardened before the investigation's conclusions become public. You think that's probably why they did it, right? Mr. Barr has said that he will move quickly to release the nearly 400-page report, but needs time to scrub out confidential information. The special counsel's The special counsel's investigators have already written multiple summaries of the report, and some team members believe that Mr. Barr should have included more of their material in the 4-page letter he wrote on March 24th, laying out their main conclusions, according to government officials familiar with the investigation. Mr. Barr only briefly cited the special counsel's work in his letter. Now, Crudy, this was news to me last night that the investigators actually gave them the Cliff Notes version, presumably knowing that they can't have certain information in it, provided it on a platter to them, and Barr did his own summary / conclusion / informational 4-page piece anyway.
They like to think of that as prosecutorial discretion, Dom. I'm going to read briefly from a Hill piece along this same topic. The Washington Post and NBC News followed up with reports that some on the special counsel's team have told associates they gathered significant evidence that that Trump obstructed the probe and were frustrated with Barr's description. Barr wrote in a 4-page letter to Congress that Mueller did not find that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia in the country's election interference efforts in 2016 and stated that the special counsel's team did not reach a conclusion one way or the other about whether Trump behavior amounted to obstruction of justice. The news reports raise fresh doubts about Trump's decision to take a victory lap following the Russia probe, during which he has said Mueller delivered him a complete and total exoneration and called for the counter-investigation into the origins oranges of the probe.
Got to look at the oranges.
Trump declared victory even though he and members of his staff say they've only seen the limited information provided by Barr and not the full Mueller report. And Team Trump stayed on the offensive Thursday despite the reports, with White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee, don't call her Colonel Sanders, telling reporters that Mueller's supporters wasted 2 years of their life. She talks like Trump now, too. Wasted 2 years of their life, and they need to find a way to validate it. They lost in 2016. They lost on the collusion battle, and now they're looking for anything and everything they can to continue to attack this president because they have no message. The only idea they have is to attack the president. Dom, just a little more, and we'll get to the phones. 844-967-2789. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's personal attorney, on Wednesday blamed the reports on disgruntled members of the Mueller's team who are a bunch of sneaky, unethical leakers. It's only fair when we characterize what they investigated in public. Congressional Democrats have ramped up pressure on the Attorney General to release the full report and the underlying evidence used to compile it. The House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday voted to authorize a subpoena for the entire report. Speaker Nancy Pelosi had this to say today. I think they should release the report. That's where the evidence is, the information is. Let's see the report. If they don't have anything to hide, they shouldn't worry. The Justice Department defended its decision to release a brief initial summary of Mueller's investigation, saying it could not publish the full report because it contains secret grand jury information. Here's what the GOP, DOJ, Department of Justice, not the Republicans, spokesperson had to say, given the extraordinary public interest in the matter, the Attorney General decided to release the report's bottom line findings and his conclusions immediately without attempting to summarize the report, with the understanding the report itself would be released after the redaction process. Kupek said Barr did not believe the report should be released in a serial or piecemeal fashion, Dom.
And
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Headline. Gerald Nadler, Judiciary Committee Gerald Nadler, has asked Barr for correspondence with Mueller's office. And I also thought I heard Nadler say earlier today, can't wait for Mueller to testify.
I can't wait either. Just one other paragraph from the New York Times piece, and then again, we'll get to the phones, 844-967-2789. Barr has come under criticism for sharing so little, but according to officials familiar with the Attorney General's thinking, he and his aides limited the details they revealed because they were worried about wading into political territory. Mr. Barr and his advisors expressed concern that if they included derogatory information about Mr. Trump while clearing him, they would face a storm of criticism like what Mr. Comey endured in the Clinton investigation.
You know, again, I, like you, this was news to me. The Hill reports, I think you said this, I think it bears repeating. The reports indicated that the special counsel's office had prepared summaries of different areas of the report that could have been publicly released. Mueller provided the cliff notes. Barr chose not to use them. The plot thickens. 844-967-2789. Who's up first, Tom?
Morrow from Wisconsin. You are up. Thank you for calling. What do you got for us today?
Hi, yes. I just wanted to call to say that I'm a first-time supporter. A gentleman at my job named Doc Weeds turned me on to you guys' radio station, and I just wanted to say that I support everything you guys are doing, and I'm here to spread the word about 1510 AM, Resistance Radio, and I just want to say you guys are doing a great job.
I love you, man.
Thanks, man.
And your buddy's got one of the greatest names in the history of names. Doc Weed, that is a wonderful name.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine from work. He turned me on to you guys, you know, and but the thing is I was so close-minded about politics and everything that's going on, and he reopened my mind, and I'm hooked now. So I'm spreading the word around and letting people know about 1510 AM, and his name's Doc Weed. He says he knows you guys personally. And
I'm sure he does.
I just wanted to say I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and keep up the good work.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words. Whatever you do, and I say this for the sake of everyone in the audience, don't bogart the devil's advocate. Share with everybody.
Puff, puff, give, baby. 844-967-2789. Joe from Stevens Point, you are up. Thanks for calling today, Joe. What do you got for us?
Man, you guys got way better friends than I do. I can honestly tell you that.
We got the best friends, Joe, except those that don't like me.
Then they're not friends.
Yeah, that's right. And but okay, so you know what? I listened to Ben Wickler's pitch, and I'm the whole we're working through this election, right? And I heard. There's issues going on. And I think what this 27% turnout reveals is that the Democratic Party is softer than we think. And I think that there isn't a whole lot of competition going on in that. And what I would have liked to heard is just like, and I'm sorry I missed the interview yesterday, but this is such an important, job that somebody's going to fill. And you guys are grassroots. This is what grassroots looks like. And These guys got to get that. But I would really like to hear like where they on a macro level stand on the issues when it comes to health care, when it comes to schools and all that. Just get that stuff out of the way, but ask it.
But Joe,
way,
they're not.
You don't feel like you're having a.
They're not going to shape
but there's
policy.
A policy and a vision. I know, but there's a policy and there's a vision and a layout for how we as Democrats are going to appeal to grassroots people. And I think 27% turnout is proof that they'll go soft on you if they don't believe in you. In the sales world, do you ever buy anything from anybody that doesn't really tell you what they're going to sell you, what they're offering? If it's always some fear-based thing about, oh, Trump did this, he did 75 things that way, and he did this. But we're not telling them what we are honestly going to fight for them for. And if we do it on a micro level, there's no macro awareness. If you talk to a Republican, he's going to say, you know what? He's going to scare his constituency. That's what they're all about. But he's going to tell them about your taxes are going up. Your big government's coming in your pocket. Big government's going to bring on job-killing regulations. They're going to run through that whole gamut, but they buy it. We don't even really know what we are pushing because we're not defining the thing. And when I heard Ben, you know, I can't tell you what Ben was standing for. You know, I really can't. I can't tell you his vision. I heard something about our revolution. Our revolution will tell you what they're going to do. They'll tell you what they're going to fight for. They go into red plus 10 districts that are hardcore. And I know there's something to this because MSNBC went with Bernie Sanders into West Virginia, and in front of Republican voters, he got them to cheer for all sorts of leftist populist positions, Medicare for all, doing something about school, doing something about child care, doing something about elder care. You know, really stiffening this thing up. But we are leaving so much on the table by not really defining what we're going to do, what we're selling. And if we're in sales, which we are, we have got to define what we are selling, not what we're afraid of, not what makes us panic and lose sleep at night. You know what I mean? So
I do.
It's important because I think there's – go ahead. I'm sorry.
A couple of quick thoughts, Joe. First and foremost, you asked, have I ever bought something from someone not knowing precisely what I was buying? And unfortunately, with the prohibition on marijuana here in the state of Wisconsin, you know, I find myself calling guys with odd names like Doc Weed and asking them, can I trust that what you're selling me is good? And they always tell me, oh, this is the stuff that killed Elvis. Above and beyond that, Joe, I understand your point. The Democratic Party should have a clear message. But, I mean, you've got more than a dozen presidential campaigns, and all of them have different visions for where this nation should go next. And we don't know who's going to be the nominee. I'd like to see it be a guy like Bernie Sanders, but I'm not married to any of them yet. But we will be eventually. And that person's vision will become, in large part, the platform of the Democratic Party. We, the primary voters, will choose who has that vision. It is the Democratic Party's chair's job to execute a ground game, a messaging platform. And quite frankly, yeah, I do think it's important who's crafting the message on behalf of the Democratic Party. It has not been coming with any sort of frequency or regularity or coherence as far as I'm concerned. But, Joe, above and beyond that, I don't need to know if Ben Wickler's for the Green New Deal or if he wants to go with Medicare for all. I mean, I've got to assume if he's on Team Blue, these are the party platforms of Team Blue, and they better all be for legalized marijuana, Joe. I'm telling you.
Well, okay, could I say it this way? Maybe you could just frame it in the way that they could answer it in, like, you know that half of this country makes $30,000 a year or less. You know that it's affecting families. You know that 70% of the people that die in debt. You know that there's a big bunch of macro problems from an economic standpoint that translates to political capital very easily. It converts right over. And that's the stuff that I'm saying that you could help us out and build, you know, as listeners. And those are the reasons why you want to refocus and have Democrats stepping up to the pump for you.
Hey, Joe, real quick, are you a paying member of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin?
You know what? Here, I'll tell you.
I'm going to put you down for a no, Joe.
I'll tell you why I'm not. Sherry Bustos is going to work against guys like you and you won't be able to access the consultants and the wave of where the big money goes. Hillary Clinton raised twice as much money as Donald Trump. And you know what? I don't know where that money went. It didn't go into AM radio, though, I can tell you that. Another thing I can tell you is that it's consultant-driven, and it's not translating.
Joe, sorry to cut you short, buddy. Out of time in this segment. Come back, though. More phone calls at 844-967-2789. You're listening to the greatest radio show ever. We've got the greatest friends. We mean you.
They're trying to take you out with bull.
Does this mean we're not friends anymore?
We're going to be friends for a long, long period of time.
If I thought you weren't my friend, I just don't think I could bear it.
It's not like it's complicated. It's very simple.
Five Nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mama. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon. It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Party line is open, 844-967-2789. We'll take callers this segment. Then, at the top of the hour, Jim Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, joins me in studio at the happy hour.
Dominic, I just got an email. I'd like to share it with you. It's from the outgoing chair of the Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin, and it must be a generic email. It's no sort of hate mail per se. It says, next week, Founders Day 2019. Let me tell you, this is a party I will not be attending. Democratic Party of Wisconsin Founders Day Gala 2019 with the dynamic keynote speaker, Governor Tony Evers, and the Honorable Julian Castro. He's the presidential candidate, I believe, Dom. Anyways, they want your money, and they want you to come down on Saturday, April 13th, to the Hyatt Regency Milwaukee. Better RSVP. I'm sure it's going to be a full room. 333 West Kilburn Avenue, 5 p.m. it starts. You know, go look it up on the Dem website. I'm done promoting anything under this current Dem administration until there is a changing of the guard and a turning of the page. You will get no more of my money.
844-967-2789.
Not that I've given substantially, just for the record. I'm not like a big Dem donor. I give at the office, at the radio station, if you will.
Mark from Reedsburg, what do you got for us today?
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
Awesome, Mark. Thank you.
Excellent, Mark. Happy somebody's...
well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, happy to see a guy like you listening in Reedsburg, my friend.
I've talked to you before, and I have actually been following you guys for years. I lived out in Colorado, and I used to tune in via iHeart for a while, and then moved back to Wisconsin. Now I got a little small business in Reedsburg, and I'm actually working on some other things. But the reason I'm chiming in is Joe, I support his concept completely. I think, when we start to divide macro and micro issues, I think Bernie came to the state and whipped ass, pardon my French.
Yep.
And those are on macro levels. But I'll tell you what, if you want people to vote for you, then you got to support the issues that, you got to bring up the issues that the people support. And it's
Bernie will bring up,
these issues are
Mark,
supported overwhelming. I mean, we can't allow politicians in the Democratic Party to define what the Democrats are. It's like, okay, this is what they're saying, we're going to be, so now let's go vote for them. That's, I think, part of the problem is it's like, if we don't know what the Democratic Party represents really, but we know what the Republicans represent, we saw, lack of clarity is why we have Donald Trump in the White House.
Well,
in my opinion.
Mark, I think there are a lot of issues the Democrats stand for. And one of your standard bearers, you mentioned him, Bernie Sanders. He did kick ass. He may kick ass again. I strongly suspect he will. Early polling shows Bernie Sanders very popular still in the Badger State. But, Mark,
right.
Bernie Sanders effectively set the agenda for 15 Democratic candidates this year. I mean, Bernie Sanders is setting the agenda for the Democratic Party. If you look at how many of them have adopted his propositions, be it Medicare for all, legalizing marijuana, not that that's the first one to ever think of it, but I don't need the Dem Party chair deciding what the platform is. The party decides the platform. We, the people, are the Democratic Party. We vote on the platform.
Right.
And then you go support the platform, whatever is decided on in the convention on June 1st and 2nd. That's the same weekend we elect a new chair, sir.
We also see a lot of questionable terminology used when they're defining what Medicare for all is. So to me, it's like I honestly, I'm a Bernie supporter, and I will support him the next go around, or somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, if she happens to be get the popularity and get up there. But I'll tell you what, I mean, the reason that education is not like something we got to look at on a national level. Education in the state of Wisconsin is education in the state of Wisconsin, and we have control over those macro issues in our state. And so if we don't define those issues like corporate farming and be pounding on those issues and education and health care, those, they might sound macro, but they are micro. And if we don't take it to that level, as Democrats, and as the principles that we stand for, then we're not, all we're doing is talking in platitudes. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party.
Mark, I agree completely. We better talk to people at their kitchen tables, and we better have something to say. Come back with us. Devil's Advocates, we always have something to say. We got a fine guest next. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle in the Brady Street Studios. You want to stick around.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
Here in the Badger State, we have our own expressions. When we're looking to go on vacation, we state, well, let's go up north. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, president of Teamsters Local 200. Here in the Badger State, we also have another expression, union yes. The strength of the labor movement depends on elected officials here in Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. that support the values of working families that raise the standards for all. Give us a call at Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit our website at www.teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200. Be engaged.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org. P4ppc.org. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Hope dashed, a year to shape up. I'm Barbara Cusack. A person that came forward claiming to be the missing Illinois teen Timothy Pitson, who disappeared 8 years ago when he was 6, is not. Pitson family friend Kara Jacobs confirmed the disappointing news.
Unfortunately, this child is not our beloved Timothy. We know that you are out there somewhere, Tim, and we will never stop looking for you, praying for you, and loving you.
The Newport, Kentucky police chief says the man who claimed to be Pitson is actually 23-year-old Brian Michael Rinney of Medina, Ohio, who has a prior arrest record. President Trump has now sounded a warning, giving Mexico a year to rein in the flow of drugs and illegal immigrants at the southern border or face the consequences, starting with tariffs.
What's more real initially is tariffs on the cars coming in, a 25% tariff on the cars being made in Mexico coming in. You know, Mexico, prior to my becoming president, took close to 30% of our car business. Okay, that's a lot. That's a big, big chunk. They did that under NAFTA.
The House Judiciary Committee chairman wants the Attorney General to release any and all summaries of the special counsel's Russia report prepared by Robert Mueller's team. Correspondent Sarah Murray says some members of Mueller's team want more information detailing their findings to be released.
Sources tell CNN that several investigators on Robert Mueller's team are telling people outside the special counsel's office that William Barr failed to adequately describe how the investigation of potential obstruction of justice included derogatory information about President Trump's actions.
Boeing stock rose today despite the release of a preliminary report that highlighted the role of an automated anti-stall system on its best-selling plane in 2 deadly crashes. The Dow posted a 167-point gain, the S&P 500 up 6, and the Nasdaq lost 4 points. I'm Barbara Cusack.
What do basketball, choir, drama club, and marching band all have in common? They're all high school activities that offer learning opportunities not necessarily found in the classroom. They take up just a fraction of a typical Wisconsin high school's budget, and they go a long way to giving young people the tools they need to thrive. High school activities, they're more than extracurricular. They're extra important, too. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Eric Holder, he's the former U.S. Attorney General and current chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
The notion that Scott Walker is saying that we are doing something to push partisan gerrymandering, that is the pot calling the kettle total black. I mean, that's absurd. He is one of the architects of among the most gerrymandered states in the union. All we're pushing for is a fair process come 2021.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Saints has repealed rules banning baptisms for children of LGBT parents and making gay marriage a sin eligible for expulsion.
The church's highest leadership group, called the First Presidency, says it is not changing its doctrinal opposition to gay marriage and still considers same-sex relationships a serious transgression. But people in same-sex relationships will no longer be considered apostates who can be expelled from the church. The LGBT advocacy group Mormons Building Bridges hailed the church for correcting a mistake in record time, saying usually these things take maybe 100 years or more. I'm Evan Haining.
Chris Beard of Texas Tech has won the Associated Press Men's Basketball Coach of the Year honor. His team reached its first NCAA Final Four this year. And Baylor's Kim Mulkey was named Coach of the Year for women's college basketball. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Wisconsin. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
For News Talk 1510 AM and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. 1 year following an 11.5-point margin of victory for Rebecca Dallett, a 12-point swing has given Brian Hagedorn a victory over Lisa Neubauer. Just 27% of voting-age Wisconsinites participated in the spring election, and under 6,000 votes separates the two candidates. Former House Speaker and failed vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan says freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ignored his advice to, quote, just take it easy, just watch things for a while. Highs today around 40 degrees, rain forecasted for the afternoon. Overnight lows in the mid-30s. Friday cloudy with highs in the mid to upper 50s. Saturday highs near 60 with cloudy skies. For News Talk 1510 and 1580, I'm Keith Gostad.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We are sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour. And Dominic, it's now officially hashtag Mueller time, because we've been joined by another fine guest. He is Jim Santelle, a former U.S. attorney and our friend. Most importantly, Jim, welcome back. I'm a little short on friends of late.
Always good friends, right? Both of you, good to be back here again with you this afternoon.
Always a pleasure, Jim. Appreciate it.
So we've seen the Mueller report, and apparently it's a full exoneration of Donald Trump.
Right, what else you want to talk about?
Nothing to see here. Let's just wrap things up. Time to move on, apparently, Jim, right?
Or at least in a 4-page document from the Attorney General who tells us that. And so he does summarize a bit about what things we know. We know about the indictments of the Russians from the last several months, both in terms of hacking and also the social media indictments. He talks about those. And then most significantly goes on and talks about the two issues that America is talking about today, which is whether or not there was conspiracy/collusion, and second, whether there can, in fact, also be a prosecution for obstruction of justice. And there I find his language especially interesting. At the end of paragraph, he talks about the president not being involved in an underlying crime. And to the extent that the Attorney General is indicating on that point that it is not possible to prosecute an individual for obstruction of justice if there's not an underlying crime, he knows, the world knows, that that's simply a misstatement of the law. There are cases all the time here in eastern Wisconsin and throughout the country, state and federal prosecutors prosecuting all the time people who engage in obstruction when there may or may not be an underlying crime or it cannot be proven.
Now,
so that language is significant.
Did Mueller address, my understanding, if I remember correctly, he didn't specifically address the obstruction issue.
That's correct. He basically said there are situations, there's evidence on both sides of this analysis, and for that reason he is not making a decision, not making a recommendation on that. I will tell you, Dom, that on that issue too, I find that curious. The first time probably many times this afternoon I will say I'm so looking forward to seeing what Bob Mueller says about this, because again, when I think about what a report should be from a prosecutor, I think about a prosecution memorandum. Anytime there's a case here in Milwaukee, around the country, there's a prosecution memorandum that describes the bases for the counts, the decisions about those counts that will not be prosecuted, and there's analysis that goes behind it. So I'm going to be fascinated to see what Bob Mueller said about his conclusion, or perhaps non-conclusion. He said, I'm not making a decision about that. What's the evidence on the left and what is the right? Frankly, prosecutors are charged with doing that all the time, making those tough calls.
Jim, got to ask you, new reporting, New York Times overnight. We saw it synapsed in other places, but I was unaware that Mueller's team actually provided summaries. They provided summaries, Jim. Why did Barr need to summarize the conclusions if Mueller's team had provided summaries for public digestion?
At least the second curious question of the afternoon, right? And again, plainly anticipating these investigators on the Mueller team that this is going to be a subject of an awful lot of analysis and review by America generally, and anticipating that the country, the Congress, perhaps even the president, is going to want some immediate release of this, would not have been at all unusual to assume that they would have prepared several paragraphs at the top of every single category for that very purpose. And so we haven't seen those yet. Perhaps we'll see that down the road.
Now, Jim, you told us you had worked for William Barr, for Bill Barr, and you liked Bill Barr, and I got to question your prior judgment, sir. Do you want to stand by your prior statement?
It is
Jim?
always good. It's always good for people in the public domain and outside the public domain to be questioned on their positions, both present and historical. And we should always be revising our thoughts as history moves forward.
Are you revising your thoughts?
I am not. The answer today is that I still regard Bill Barr as an institutional kind of guy who understands about the importance of the Department of Justice, arm's length with the White House. He gets what the Department of Justice is all about. I must say that some of what he has written about, again, is curious to me, not only in terms of what I already identified, this issue about whether or not there can be a prosecution when there's no underlying offense. That's just plain wrong, with all due respect, Mr. Attorney General. I'm concerned about the fact that we are not getting more substance up to this point, and I certainly hope that with respect to when this our document is in fact produced, that we have got the lion's share of it. Even with respect to the grand jury information, there's a mechanism for going to federal court and getting a judge to say, you know what, the investigation, if indeed it is all over, those materials can be released to the public domain if there's a public interest in doing that. And so I'm hoping that perhaps that's underway. I'm hoping that Bill Barr lives up to that reputation that many of us have for him, our regard for him. I'm concerned about what I have seen up to this point in this 4-page letter, and I'm stricken by the fact that he has not been more forthright in saying all of this is forthcoming, with the exception of those things that may implicate national security and may also implicate ongoing investigations. Those are the two categories that I'll give you some latitude on. The rest of that, we've got to see that. And Mr. Attorney General, do what's right, do what your commission is all about, and release this entire report.
Jim, the New York Times reporting says that Mueller investigators, although they are anonymously quoted, and specifically, it's not even a Mueller investigator quoted, it is friends of the investigators, and that obviously gives lots of license to the right to say, fake news and unnamed sources. But do you believe the veracity of the reporting of the New York Times? And do you believe indeed that perhaps some of these Mueller investigators are trying to back-channel, get this news out, that there is an incongruence between what Bill Barr says is in the Mueller report and what they actually investigated and put in the Mueller report?
Your point is well taken about the reporting on this, right? We're not having specific names attributed to these comments about not being completely forthright and clear in the Attorney General's letter. So that's an important point. The issue, however, is whether or not there's some veracity there. And I look back to the situation way back in January when we had this BuzzFeed article that came out, and the Mueller folks came forward through the press person and said, you know what, that's not true, that we do not have evidence that the president directed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. They came out with explicit statements. This is the second time, when assuming this reporting is accurate, and there's no reason to believe it's not, this is the second time that you've got people inside the Mueller team saying, you know what, there's something in the public domain that is at best misleading, maybe just downright wrong. I tend to believe it. Once again, looking forward to seeing what this report says, to see about the extent to which what the 4-page letter says is a true and accurate and, most important, complete, comprehensive statement of what that 300 or 400-page Mueller report really does say. I tend to put some credence in what we're hearing today.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, friend of the Devil's Advocates, joins us in studio talking about the Mueller time report. Jim, the grand jury still impaneled. They're still there. Why would they still be there if the Mueller report has been filed? what is their purpose now?
This is the other head scratcher, right, Dom? And we're chatting about this throughout the times that I've been with you. It strikes me there's still an awful lot of business out there, and we've chatted about this in the past. A little bit of a civics lesson on this. Grand juries typically impaneled for 18 months. They can be extended, as this one has been. They're a branch of the court, and so the judicial decisions about whether to extend them. This particular grand jury, we understand, even from as late as a week ago Monday, is still active. How do we know that? Because in connection with a subpoena issued by the grand jury to a company in a foreign country, we had some proceedings in court about the enforcement of the subpoena. We had a government prosecutor saying the investigation is still ongoing. So there's something out there. There's still activity going on. It does, again, prompt me to scratch my head about the reason for the production of the report while this investigation is going on. And again, I have made a list of those things that, again, strike me as being unresolved, including this mystery corporation issue, other things.
And the mystery corporation, and this was a corporation, is like a lending facility. Do we know what this is owned by a country?
We don't know. We know that there is some affiliation with the country because the company is apparently maintaining that the laws under that foreign country either prohibit it or limit its capacity to respond. That apparently it's this argument. We don't know what the country is. We don't know what the company is, but we know there's litigation about it. It's gotten to the Supreme Court, and it's still going on as late as 10 days ago. That's a grand jury subpoena coming out of this grand jury. Other things like this. Jerome Corsi, somebody we talked about in context of Roger Stone. He was offered a plea agreement.
It seems like he was the radio guy.
He was one of those. Exactly. Appears quite a bit on the radio, and also in that group with Roger Stone. He produced a plea agreement at some point. It was purported to be accurate, and no reason to believe it wasn't. What happened? What happened with that situation? We know that Paul Manafort. Again, unlikely that the federal government's going to be prosecuting Paul Manafort further, but we know again from government representations, Paul Manafort provided poll data to this fellow named Konstantin Kalimnik. Why do you do that? Well, that's directly related to those indictments of February and March of last year involving the Russians and the social media engagements. So we've got all those kinds of things out there. And again, getting back to Roger Stone, we've got that grand jury indictment that we talked about a number of weeks ago, and that grand jury indictment of Roger Stone specifically talking about a senior Trump campaign official was directed to contact Stone to get in touch with Jerome Corsi and to get in touch with other intermediaries, ultimately leading to WikiLeaks. We don't know who that senior official is who directed somebody else inside the Trump campaign to get in touch with Roger Stone. That may or may not be criminal conduct. We don't know that, but it just strikes me as, again, there are so many questions coming out of the things that seem to be unresolved that we have chatted about. Maybe they're going to be in this report. Maybe they're the subject of future action by this grand jury. We just don't know.
One question I have on this, on the Mueller report, at least a summary from Barr, that there was no proof of collusion or conspiracy, I'm paraphrasing, and that the obstruction was not decided on. Could the situation exist, Jim, where the obstruction actually was so good it worked and therefore shielded them from finding out actual facts and connecting the dots to the actual crime?
This is the reason, Dom, why obstruction is a separate crime, that we don't want people doing this. And if, in fact, in any situation, if your obstruction is so very effective, it may prevent a discovery of an investigation. We don't necessarily believe that that's the situation here just because we think Mueller is so very good and we have all of these subpoenas, all these witnesses out there. But it underscores once again this fundamental notion that simply because there wasn't enough in Bob Mueller's assessment based upon all this investigation to find a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russians does not mean that there is not a basis upon which to decide that there was an obstruction of justice in the very investigation that came to that result.
Got a fine guest in the Brady Street studios. He is James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, a fine resource when it's Mueller time. Quick one for you, Jim. Do you think the Barr report will be released somewhere around tax day, over under?
I certainly hope so, and that's certainly what the Attorney General has said. I think we're going to be back here again talking about a 300 or 400 page report within the next 10 to 15, maybe 20 days or so.
I will make you a pledge. Dom will not read it.
I'm putting my money on him actually this time.
Thank you, Jim.
Come back with us. A little light reading for Dominic, the 3 to 4 to 800 page Mueller report, depending on whose reporting you believe. James Santelle, a fine guest in studio. More Devil's Advocates, a fine radio show. You're listening right now.
What's in the box?
It's called presidential harassment.
All workers benefit from unions, as unions create the highest standard in wages, health and welfare, retirement security, and workplace protections. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, President of Teamsters General Local 200. Your voice is your strength. The ability to build a stronger and better tomorrow begins today. Teamster Local 200 represents workers in numerous industries, and our team is ready to sit down with you and your co-workers to build your unified team. Call Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit us on Facebook or www.teamsterslocal200.com.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, I work hard to be a leader in my industry, and I know the challenges posed by changing technology. It's my priority to make sure your network is up over 99% of the time. There's no question, trying to manage your own business IT is risky, costly, and time-consuming. Don't let IT overwhelm you. Learn more about Five Nines at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
The Devil's Advocates.
Doug from Cudahy.
Right around at the time of the uprising, I found you. I started listening, and 2 years later, after I signed the recall and voted, we went out to sing along with the singers on my birthday. And they were so cool, and it's one of the greatest memories that I had. And ever since I started listening to the Devil's Advocates, I have been woke. I haven't missed one vote since. You guys have really done wonders for our community, and I'm just so happy you're on the air.
Making radio great again.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.
The Devil's Advocates. Political commentary from the back of the class.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Devil Radio. And if you missed any of this fine program, which you should never do, but if you do, you can go online to DominiCroot.com and download podcasts and interviews.
Dominic, we've got a fine guest. He's that guy that comes on the afternoon show and talks about that stuff happening in Washington, D.C.
And that's a description I embrace heartily, just enthusiastically.
Jim Santelle just told us a story off the air, and we appreciate you doing so, Jim. Apparently recognized in public. You're that guy, Jim.
It's that voice.
Right. Not by image, but by voice, yes. And I regard that with great delight.
Well, unfortunately, if you're on the post office wall like I've been occasionally, you don't want to be recognized on site, Jim. So anonymous is better. That's why radio is a fine medium. Let's talk, if we could, about Donald Trump Jr. I cannot believe he didn't catch an indictment. I thought it was Lanny Davis. I might be wrong, but I believe it was Michael Cohen's lawyer on CNN or one of the cable news outlets that said if Don Jr. signed a check, he committed a crime and he should be subject to indictment. Jim, of course, we're talking about the payoffs to Stormy Daniels and the hiding of that apparently to evade campaign finance laws. What's your opinion? Isn't there some sort of straight line? If we see a $35,000 check that Don Jr. signed, isn't he criminal?
And again, this goes to the campaign finance violations that we've talked about involving Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, and those payments that were made again through Michael Cohen. And again, I find that evidence, those checks, including one signed by the President of the United States of America, very compelling as well. What I will say about that is just this. When we go back and we look at the commission given to the Mueller folks back in May of 19, links to the Russian government, individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, even with some language that follows, It's a fairly narrow commission. Remember that as a result of that, we've got the Southern District of New York now looking at the Michael Cohen issues, including those hush money situations involving Daniels, involving McDougal. I will say, without knowing for certain, that issue is not yet resolved. And plainly, Michael Cohen provided a lot of information there. It is probably unlikely that particular aspect of this will find its way into the 300 or 400 page report on Russia, because if you think about it, it is pretty discreet, and it may well be that that's one of those things that Bob Mueller, in his wisdom and his good judgment, has handed that off to the Southern District. We have not yet seen the last of that, including many other things of the Southern District of New York, the Attorney General in the state of New York generally. So my sense is that the entire hush money thing and other matters out there may still be the subject of some continuing criminal investigation and potential prosecution.
The fact that check, I think specifically the Don Jr. check, and obviously there were many checks, I think was drawn off of the trust that was supposed to be set up to manage the president's affairs while he's president. Does that pierce the veil of that trust?
It certainly seems to, would it not? Yes. When it comes to discovery, and again, in the area of criminal discovery through grand jury subpoenas, certainly through witness production, voluntary production of documents, those kinds of things, those documents are get-atable. That's not a legal word. That's just one that I often use just to indicate that they are retrievable, they're discoverable, if you want to use the language of the law. And so the answer is yes. And again, if I were prosecuting a case like that, those checks with those signatures on them would be Exhibits 1A, 1A1, and 1A, 1A2. And again, we have not seen the last of that. We don't know if there will be prosecutions, but the Lanny Davis commentary of recent date about those transactions, paying money off, again, weeks before the election itself, certainly seems to be for the specific purpose of affecting the outcome of the election, the timing of it, the conversation that Michael Cohen will plainly testify to, all that indicates that you've got a campaign finance concern, if not a violation there.
Now, Jim Santelle, you've told us on this fine program, this is the beginning of the end, or the end of the middle, or the beginning of the middle, and here's my question. If Mueller has released his report and handed off other investigations, the public's perception, because of the Barr summary to date, is vindication, exoneration. At least that's what Trump's claiming. Jim, do you fear that the Mueller report undermines future evidence which might come to bear showing actual criminality from this president?
I think the Mueller report does something and it doesn't do something. I think it does have an impact upon the public perception out there that doesn't sit around and talk as we do about the minutia of what we're seeing day to day. And so there is a sense, oh yes, that's been taken care of. That Russia thing is now over. On the other hand, does the issuance of the report itself mean that all these other investigations are stopping? Absolutely not. We talked a few moments ago about things that are still going on out of this grand jury. And beyond that, remember too, we've got the Southern District of New York pursuing, as we said, not just the hush money things. We've got the New York Attorney General looking at the Trump Foundation. Remember that issue as well. She talked about a shocking pattern of illegality. We've got Cy Vance in Manhattan looking at things as well. We plainly have Congress now looking at tax returns, potentially emoluments issues. So there are all kinds of things that are not squarely within that Mueller mandate and presumably not in that report. We're going to expect a whole lot more out there.
James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, great friend of ours. Thank you so much for coming down to Brady Street and informing our audience today.
Always a pleasure, Mike Dunn. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. We'll be right back.
Want to be more presidential? Tweet the Devil's Advocates at Devil Radio.
This Russia thing.
Would that be obstruction?
Yes.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com. Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably?
It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson joins us on the phone regarding our military influence. Aren't we selling arms right now to Saudi Arabia, and aren't they using, munitions that they have purchased from us in their war?
And if we weren't doing that, because they've got plenty of money, they'll buy less precise munitions from other people, and the bloodshed would be worse.
Well, the blood might be on someone else's hands then, Ron.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about that, Ron.
For News Talk 1510 AM and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. Starting tomorrow, Wisconsin citizens will have their first opportunity in more than a decade to testify on the issue of partisan gerrymandering of state legislative and congressional districts. This takes place at sanctioned state legislative public hearings scheduled by the Joint Finance Committee during the month of April around Wisconsin. The hearing this Friday is at the Pontiac Convention Center in Janesville. Other dates include Oak Creek on April 10th and UW River Falls on April 15th. You can submit written comments about gerrymandering at budgetcomments@legis.wisconsin.gov. For News Talk 1510 and 1580, I'm Keith Gostad.
Ass, grass, or cash, nobody rides for free. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one indeed, James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, most importantly, one of my last remaining friends.
Thank you, Mr. Santelle, a fine resource. Breaks it down for dumb guys like me. I imagine we will be speaking with him again very soon.
And he said nice things about us during the commercial break. He noted, as he goes out in public, more and more of the fans of WRD 1510 AM, well, they're acknowledging him out in the public, and we love when you do so. Nothing like publicly accosting our guests. They love it when you do that. Keep doing it. Keep it up.
We love the love.
Just tell them you glued your preset to 1510 AM.
844-967-2789. Let's get some callers in. Philip from Waukesha. You are up. Thanks for calling today, Philip. What do you got?
Yeah, hey, guys. You got to save me from jumping off the cliff.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Here's my fear. Okay. The Ways and Means Committee is going to go after Donald Trump's taxes.
Yes.
This is allowed or required gives the power to the Ways and Means chairman to get anybody in the country's taxes.
They shall turn them over.
I don't know what it is. Okay, my fear is, and I don't know why this is happening, they're going to fight this. And it's going to, they're going to do everything they can to fight this and everything. And then maybe it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and then the Republican Supreme Court is going to say, no, you can't do it. What is the purpose of the Constitution? Because this Trump presidency is really showing us that this democracy, this Constitution, is not working. And because we never knew that we were going to get this crazy maniac to run our country and have 35 to 40% of the people back him. And my fear is that this guy is going to he's going to get off on all of this stuff, because it's like I was just thinking, he's like a 2-year-old and he's got a toy box. And there's all kinds of toys in there. One's Mexico, one's Guatemala, one's Russia, one's China. And it's like every single day he picks up another toy to play with. And it's just like never ending. And it's like we can't do anything about this. It's like we're helpless.
Well, Philip,
and Barr, I mean, this guy, he is known as the cover-up attorney. He covered up for Nixon's crimes. He covered up for Bush's crimes, for Reagan's, the Iran-Contra. He covered up all this stuff, and that's what he's doing now. And for these people, these experts or people, the pundits, thinking that this guy, Barr, is going to do anything for the country is crazy. I mean, his job is to protect the president. And it's we need this stuff by the 10th. Well, I don't know if I can get it done by that. Do you think if that were you or me that we could say that? I mean, that's the thing that drives me nuts is these criminals, because they have money, they could do anything they want.
Well, Philip, to be honest, Dominic used to renegotiate the due dates on his term papers all the time. But above and beyond that, I got something to reassure you. A steadying hand, some news out of D.C., Philip. This will back you off the cliff. Take reassurance. On Thursday, President Donald Trump announced he plans to nominate this person to join the Federal Reserve Board. Why, it's Herman Cain.
999, Philip.
Herman Cain is going to be a Federal Reserve Board chairman.
Becky, stand.
Now we've got a steadying hand on financial policy, at least.
Hey, Philip. Let me address, if I may. And I get what you're saying. The Constitution. Are we broken? Does this country can it withstand this? And I don't think we're there yet. We've just scratched the surface. Mueller's report has been submitted, and we've gotten this, bull summary that I think everybody, upon taking a break and looking at this and understanding where we're at, knows that this, there's much more to this story. I absolutely believe that the Southern District of New York and these other investigations, the grand jury still in panel, I believe that those investigations, there will still be hell to rain down upon Trump and his family members and his organization and the trust and the campaign and the inauguration committee, to name them off the top of my head, Philip, and I got a bad memory. There are so many, and then let alone the counterintelligence investigation. I mean, there's a lot here. I'm not ready to say it's broken. I'm certainly concerned. I mean, I think, there should be people in the streets. There's supposed to be today. I haven't seen them here in Wisconsin. Apparently there's some protests going on. And, the Dems in the House, the committee leaders, they're doing their damnedest. I mean, just in the last couple of days, man, they are putting the pressure on this administration like they have never had before. And they're just starting, Philip. I mean, I don't know. I just say don't jump off the cliff just yet.
Okay. I believe you guys.
All right. All right. Thank you for calling, Philip. Always a pleasure. 844-967-2789. We love it when our audience participates, like Kurt from Madison. You're up, Kurt. What do you got for us today?
Well, as much as I like your guest you just had on as well, I categorically have to disagree with him, only because one is on Tom Harmon's show, he had an expert on it talked and wrote about Barr's background, how he got Bush Sr. off, and all the shenanigans he pulled that were illegal at that time as well. And I just want to say, when he says, well, I met him, he's a nice guy, well, everybody liked Jerry Dahmer too until they found out he was killing people and dissolving them in the basement. So Barr has a long, long track record of being a bad guy. And I recommend that people look up Waldron. I forget his first name, but he gets into great detail about what this guy's about, what he was involved in, and why he can't be trusted.
So, Kurt, do you, and I get that, and I totally concur, and I know the history of this man, and certainly how he got this position now by writing his term paper and giving it to Trump and explaining all the reasons why this investigation should not have ever occurred. So, I mean, he's certainly playing that game, and he has been the cover-up king for GOP actions over the years. But there's still investigations going on, and there's still now, I mean, certainly the Democrats in these committee chairs are applying the pressure. Do you think that will be enough to overcome any shield that Barr may be able to provide? Now, granted, people's positions may have hardened even more. We've had 2 weeks now of Trump saying the collusion delusion is over, but it ain't. And he's literally saying, I have been absolved of all sins in this. And he specifically in the report that was even released, the partial part by Barr was specifically addressed the obstruction charge. That he was not cleared of obstruction, and then they're out there, gaslighting, saying, well, we are. So we have that portion of it. But, it's far from reality, Kurt. I mean, don't you think that at some point reality will win out?
Well, Barr has a reputation of pulling stall tactics to get past hurdles. The only thing that's going to possibly bring about real justice is Mueller in front of the Congress and getting Mueller to answer some hard questions. Were you told to stop investigating? Did you have any interactions with Barr where he discouraged you from any further pursuit of investigations? So forth. That's got to happen. If that doesn't happen, then this is just another song and dance. We've seen it before, and again, we, the public, will be screwed.
Well, we might be screwed, Kurt, but I don't believe that there was a direct obstruction, not from a smart guy like William Barr to Mueller. Now, Donald Trump, that's a whole different story. I certainly think that there was obstruction. I watched the Lester Holt interview on NBC.
Right, in plain public view.
It seems so obvious. Dominic, we've kind of been talking about all the things that are bad in this world. I'd like to throw out a new topic from here to the end of the show. Perhaps more than one, but
calling an audible. Lay it on me, brother.
Omaha, Green 17. There is some new polling out today, Dom, and this polling is fascinating in light of the recent Wisconsin Supreme Court election. And here in the state of Wisconsin, hating the gay was not a good enough reason to throw the candidate out with the bathwater. In this case, Brian Hagedorn had written some very anti-gay things, had basically analogized homosexuality under the law being bestiality, had come up with policies at a school he co-founded, a Christian school, where you couldn't be gay. Your parents couldn't be gay. Effectively, he demonstrates himself to be a homophobe. But here in the state of Wisconsin, that was okay. At least it was okay with enough Republicans that Hagedorn has currently a 6,000 vote lead and probably will be the next justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And Kurt from Stallis, I think yesterday, as a gay man, he called and said he was pissed. I'd be pissed. Our pal L.A. Tom is pissed. We should all be pissed for our friends, our brothers, our sisters in the gay and lesbian LGBTQ community. So in light of that, here in the state of Wisconsin, this newest polling is a little surprising. Nearly 70% of Americans are okay with a gay president, a new poll finds. 70%, Tom. The LGBT community has seen public opinion shift in recent years on a range of issues, including same-sex marriage and equal rights. A recent poll shows one more issue illustrative of this trend, illustrative I don't know. I probably mispronounced it. Anyways, I'll read on. It paints a picture of the trend. Voters have become much more accepting of gay Americans seeking the highest office in the land. There was a time when South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete, sexuality, he is gay, would have made him unelectable in many parts of the country. As recently as 2006, and let's not forget, in 2006 in the state of Wisconsin, effectively a same-sex marriage ban instituted in our Constitution by referendum. The people of the state of Wisconsin said, one man, one woman. That was 13 years ago. Anyways, back to the Washington Post piece. As recently as 2006, when Buttigieg, and I don't know how to pronounce his name either. I'm sorry, if he's the next president, I'll call him President.
Buddha Judge. Think Buddha and Judge. Buddha Judge.
Buttigieg was 24. Most Americans said they would be very uncomfortable or have reservations about a gay person running for president. That has changed dramatically. According to a recent NBC Wall Street Journal poll, nearly 70% of Americans said they would be either enthusiastic or comfortable with the candidate who is gay or lesbian. To put that in perspective, 85% said they were enthusiastic or comfortable with the female candidate. I mean, and do the math on Tammy Baldwin. She's both. And she still won the state of Wisconsin by 11 and a half points, something like that.
Double digits.
Yeah, double digits. Tony won by 1%. So my point being, I guess in part in bringing this up is, wow, what an evolution of the electorate. But two, all the gay, all the homophobic bashing ads that were utilized by the Neubauer campaign, well, that wasn't apparently enough to motivate enough Democrats to go out and vote, Dom. But 70% of people would be okay with a gay president or at least a gay presidential candidate. So where's that Venn diagram come around?
Right, I don't know.
It's okay to be a gay U.S. senator in the state of Wisconsin, win by double digits, at least when your opponent is completely unpalatable, like your girl, Nurse Ratched, Leah Vukmer. But the straight dim ticket barely won in the state of Wisconsin, very purple on every other level. And a gay-hating candidate just won effectively a 10-year term on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So where do we stand as a state, Dom? Where do we, the people of Wisconsin, where do we stand on gay and serving our state and our nation? I mean, we've got Mark Pocan. We've got Tammy Baldwin. They're both, Madisonians that, at least in Tammy's case, has won statewide election twice. People in Wisconsin seemingly are okay with it, but we had Republicans yesterday telling us they're okay with the anti-gay rhetoric of Brian Hagedorn.
I think the Republicans, because they can't have a purity test, right? Well, maybe. We heard some of our conservative friends calling in yesterday. One libertarian, I voted for him. Well, how can you vote for him if you're a libertarian? The belief generally is, government stay out of the bedroom. But they are willing to accept those kinds of discretions, because he can justify it with the same religious book that they read. They're willing to accept that, although they may not be it that way because of his views on abortion, because of the fact that he's a Republican and Scott Walker really, really liked him.
We are the Devil's Advocates. We want to hear from you. Now's the time to dial. Got one last segment in the show. Curious, what's your attitude about a gay presidential candidate, a gay-hating Wisconsin Supreme Court justice? Come back with us. This last segment, it's going to be fabulous. 844-967-2789. You saw what I did there.
The collusion delusion.
Shut the f*** up, Donnie.
Here in the Badger State, we have our own expressions. When we're looking to go on vacation, we state, well, let's go up north. Hello, this is Tom Bennett, President of Teamsters Local 200. Here in the Badger State, we also have another expression, union yes. The strength of the labor movement depends on elected officials here in Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. that support the values of working families that raise the standards for all. Give us a call at Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit our website at www.teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook at Teamsters Local 200. Be engaged.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing.
Welcome to our good buddy, Congressman Mark Bocan. Mark, in some small part, this little radio product, the entire rationale for buying a radio station was opposition to Scott Walker. One person's telling me, be humble, Crudy. Take a day and just be humble. And another person's telling me, no, dance on Scott Walker's grave. So, Congressman, I've always admired your sage advice. Sir, what should I do? How should I react to this?
We should waltz, we should polka, and we should two-step. We should be dancing on this right now. To your credit, and I do want to give you guys credit. In Milwaukee, we have seen a shift, especially the suburban areas, from when we had just conservative radio to having you guys there. We have seen a shift in that area, and that's important because I think when people hear ideas, we do better. And I want to thank you for being there and doing what you do.
Hashtag Walker bashing.
Bye, Felicia.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. So if you've got something to say, you need to call right now. Do it now. 844-967-2789. We have some callers holding, so let's not make them wait. We'll get to them. Our pal, Pizza Box Mike, you are up. Thanks for calling today, Mike. What do you got for us?
Well, I could just hear people at the bar, if Buttigieg ever got to be elected, they'd be like, President Buttigieg. Could you see it spitting all over the place?
I would.
Crudy might be one of them.
President Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
Yeah,
Buttigieg.
Yeah, well, it's easy to say when you practice it for a while.
That's right.
Yeah, I really like some of the calls you guys have had today about how excited they are and passionate about, change in Wisconsin. So I think you're going to see that by the time we get to the Democratic convention for this year, because there are a lot of people that are talking about the same thing, and that just happens to be the same kind of thing I've been talking about for quite a while. And the problem with the Democratic Party, I got to tell you, this is a huge one. You say that Milwaukee turnout wasn't that good, okay? Well, you got to remember, you guys, after every election, people that promised they were with the people at the bottom, trying to support them to get elected, don't get much back as far as policy or, publicity or anything else. So I can tell you that's part of it right there. And the other thing is that, if the Democrats want people to support their platform, they have to have a platform that supports more than just people in the middle class or in the lower income class. You got to start helping the people that have been devastated for decades, man, centuries, all of it. Progressive, it really, upsets me when people call themselves progressives. When I think back at, well, who's the progressive I know that wouldn't be along with any of this stuff? And it's like Bob LaFollette. No, we really need that right now. And so you combine all the efforts of people that are in the struggle with someone that's going to step forward and ride on a wagon and pound on a table and not take money from anybody. I mean, there's people out there doing this. We just got to hook it up.
Right on, brother. Always appreciate your perspective, my friend.
Quickly, before we let Michael move on, Michael, are you running as the Democratic Party chair of the great state of Wisconsin? Have you qualified, whatever you got to do to run for that office?
Well, I turned in my letter of intent, and I know what I have to do to get on the ballot. So, that's the next step. And that's like going out, you have to have 10 signatures of people that are registered Democrats in 6 of the 8 congressional districts. And I'd rather try and do it in all 8 just because I want to get out and talk to some people before we get to the Democratic convention. It might not be a whole lot of time for people to hear what I have to say. So, but I think a lot of people are going to like what I have to say, and we'll see what happens.
You've always got a platform here, Mike. You're a friend of ours. Thank you so much for continuing to listen and participate. More like waiting online at 844-967-2789. Brad is next from Madison. Welcome back, Brad. What's your thought today?
Hey, guys. Glad you're continuing to be on the air and expanding. The name of the game is corruption, okay? The purpose of the Republican Party is to make the rich richer, and not just the rich, their friends. A few people at Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, the billionaires, Koch, Hendricks, Oheim, Menard, that's their entire purpose. The religion, the hate, that's just to get the minions to go along.
The masses, right?
Yes.
But can that be sustained, Brad? I mean, do you think that maybe eventually the numbers who are not in the millionaire and billionaire class certainly outnumber those that are? Do you think there's a chance that eventually this tide will turn and the people can actually control their own government again, or is it always going to be like this?
I think this has been accelerating since the early 1970s, getting worse and worse and worse.
Oh, hell, that's why we're here, Brad. We got to keep fighting back, keep pushing back, Brad. Thank you so much. Appreciate let's get some more callers in. 844-967-2789. Tom from Milwaukee, you are next. Thanks for calling, Tom. What do you got?
Hey, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good, sir.
Hey, I voted for Judge Hagedorn, and I can tell you I'm not homophobic. I'm not definitely a practicing Catholic, but I didn't vote for him because of any of those reasons. I voted for him because, from what I understood, he interprets the law, and instead of trying to write the law. And that's what people are missing on this. Nobody's out there angry at gay people or anything like that. We listen to what they say. And I think the Democratic Party stopped listening to the working middle class. They just stopped. They're not listening to what we want to hear. We want to hear the legislative body legislates, and the judge, he interprets the law. He doesn't write it.
And Tom, but did you have any specific criticism of any of Lisa Neubauer's decisions in her judicial career?
The reason why I didn't vote for her is because I looked at her family, her background, and what she was a part of, and she's a part of the big machine. And I honestly believe that she would be somebody's puppet. And that's what I believe. Now, it has nothing to do with hate or talking. It's like I listen to both sides.
But you're okay with that homophobic attitude, and it's easy to perceive it as homophobic. I don't even know what that means, because he's a Christian, and that's what they believe in, but he can't decide. I'm a Christian. I'm not anti-gay, Tom. And quite frankly, you talk about...
But he is, Tom.
Well, so what? He doesn't write the law. He has his right to object to it, just like you have your right to not object to it. But he doesn't write the law. He interprets the law. And that's what his job is. And
he literally wrote Act 10, Tom. He literally helped Scott Walker craft Act 10.
Right, but not when he was a judge. That has nothing to do with it.
Tom, wish we had more time for this
I wish we did too. Call us tomorrow, Tom. Tomorrow.
We had fine guests today and fine callers, but want to thank Ben Wickler, candidate for chair of the great Democratic Party, Jim Santelle, former U.S. Attorney. He's a friend of ours, and you're all our friends when you tune in right here to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We do it each weekday, 3 to 6 p.m. for your listening satisfaction. Stick around. Maggie Dawn of the Resistance, plays out next. Have a great night.
We're like the stupid people.
You Becky, stand.
We've included a Venn diagram.
I love you.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a